Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the sixth eDekalogo titled Futures Thinking and the Jobs for Tomorrow, Building a Stronger and Smarter Philippines. This is a webinar hosted by IBM Philippines Corporate Social Responsibility and the Development Academy of the Philippines Graduate School of Public and Development Management. I am Liza Kalina, your moderator today. This afternoon's event is a gathering of multi-stakeholders from academe, government, and the industry, with the aim of first, looking into the future of education and skills in the region, and second, to draw from the participants and reactors valuable insights and ideas on how this can support the national agenda using futures thinking as an approach. This afternoon, we would like to introduce also to you IBM's groundbreaking P-Tech model. which is an innovative public-private partnership strategy that combines quality, relevant, and industry-recognized education and workforce development that can act as a catalyst for national development and global competitiveness. This afternoon, we will be joined by four highly esteemed speakers from different parts of the world, and their presentations will be followed by an open forum with our reactors representing the government, the academe, and the industry. And later on, we will have some few questions from our participants. I would like to acknowledge our civil service chairwoman, Ma'am Alicia Bala, who is with us right now. Thank you for your valuable time, Chair Bala. And also, we are joined by participants from different public and private institutions via Zoom and Facebook Live. And there were around 670 participants who registered earlier today at around 12 noon. But we cannot accommodate all of you. We can only accommodate 500 max in our Zoom room. So please join us via Facebook Live. So to begin with, I would like to recognize and call on the President and CEO of the Development Academy of the Philippines, Attorney Engelbert C. Caranan Jr. for his opening remarks. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Lizanne. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. I am pleased to be with you here today to help officiate this event, which is a product of a partnership between the DAP and the GSPDM and IBM Philippines. But before anything else, I would like to greet and acknowledge the presence of the Civil Service Commission Chairman and also the Chairman of the DAP's Board of Trustees, Chair Alicia Bala. Our keynote speaker, Ms. Eileen Udanjiao, the President and Country Manager, General Manager of IBM Philippines. Of course, our knowledge sharers, Dr. Michael Jackson, the founder and chairman of Shaping Tomorrow. Attorney Josel Batapa Sige, the Vice President and National ICT of the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines. Ms. Jade Moffat, the Corporate Social Responsibility Lead of the IBM Australia, New Zealand. Ms. Lisa Chan, the Corporate Social Responsibility Lead, IBM Taiwan. And of course, our reactors, Undersecretary Torisito O'Malley of the Department of Education. Dr. Aldrin Darilag, our Chair Commissioner. Dr. Tirso Ronquillo, the President of the Philippine Association of State Universities and Colleges, and the Batangas State University. And lastly, Dr. Juan Birion, of the President of the Taguig City University. Mr. Reynaldo Laguda Jr., the President of the Philippine Business for Social Progress. Ms. Lynn Mukhi, the Vice President of the Philippine Management Association of the Philippines. Mr. Mike Kalma, the Country Manager, DDLS Philippines. To our participants, attendees, and viewers, good afternoon again, and a very warm welcome. Since 1972, the Development Academy of the Philippines has been at the forefront of assisting public institutions and private sector and civil society organizations in finding innovative solutions to the development challenges of the Philippines. The DAP does this using various modalities consisting of education, training, research, and consultancy. Today in particular, we boldly take the initiative by attempting to define, together with the Civil Service Commission, the Civil Service Institute, the Career Executive Board, the NEDA, and other entities of the government, the needed skills and competencies, especially the public sector, to effectively function under an environment that is often characterized as volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. However, today's activity, which is co-led with IBM, with the IBM Philippines, is an attempt to bring together the stakeholders from the different sectors, especially in the private sector, in order to have an idea of the contours of the future skills and competencies that is expected in the light of the technological advances and the push and pull factors that may bear influence upon it. We hope to gain a better understanding of them, and as a consequence, make the necessary preparations to take advantage of any opportunities or to avoid or mitigate the negative effects of any uncertainty. By hosting this program, we at DAP hope to understand the point of convergence and the point of departure between the skills and competencies of the public sector and the private sector, so that we may be able to calibrate the appropriate interventions in terms of the education and training of our public officers. So while we look at this singular activity from different perspectives, I only hope that at the end of the day, we find what we are looking for, or at least approximate what we expected. I hope that today's activity will be beneficial to all. Thank you to all of you. And as we say at DAP, we do all of this para sa Diyos, para sa bayan, para sa mamamayan. Good afternoon.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Engelbert Caronan, and for sharing with our partners the mandate, no, and the direction of DAP in the development of the industry, no, and the academe and the government as well when it comes to the futures of jobs. So at this point in time, I would like to introduce to you our keynote speaker. And our keynote speaker is the President and Country Manager of IBM Philippines. Her mission is to lead IBM to be essential to its clients' resilient operations and accelerate digital transformation through the infusion of technology such as cloud, artificial intelligence, and services. She joined IBM as a systems engineer in 1992, and with nearly 3 decades of experience on various technical, business, and executive management positions on different IBM business units within the Philippines, ASEAN, and other Asia-Pacific countries. She has also pioneered initiatives that help deliver outstanding business outcomes, retained high-value talent, and work to ensure skills are relevant now and in the future. A technology and business thought leader, she has also evangelized digital transformation and diversity and inclusion in various fora. She is committed to move the Filipino talent, especially women, into key leadership positions and get the undeserved, undermotivated external young breed into the STEM track. She advocates inclusion by supporting IBM's Good Tech initiatives to extend IBM technology and expertise to the Philippines' less privileged sectors. She also champions these initiatives further through strategic partnerships with leaders in industry. She sits on the board of the American Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, Philippine Business for Social Progress, and Philippine Business for Education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Eileen Hudan-Yao. Good afternoon, Ms. Eileen.
Good afternoon, and maraming salamat, Dr. Lizan. I'm very happy to see and thank goodness all of you are well and safe. And I see from Batanes to Zamboanga, it seems we have a very wide, broad range of audience here. On behalf of IBM, I would like to thank the Development Academy for this significant collaboration. The eDekalogo, headed by the President and CEO, Attorney Engelbert Caronan Jr. Our gracious moderator and host for the DAP Graduate School of Public Development and Management, SVP and Dean Dr. Lizan Kalina and her team. I would also like to thank our esteemed resource speakers, the reactors, guests, and other collaborators, and of course, participants from north to south, east and west, and from other parts of the world, of course, joining us this afternoon. Your participation really holds significant value, especially this time of the pandemic, as we strive to create a new normal through futures thinking. As a global tech and innovation company, IBM leverages the power of technology and our expertise and the good for the good of government, society, industries, businesses, the academe, and citizens. As you've seen in the video earlier, for some of you who may have joined a little early, We call our CSR programs Good Tech IBM, and it spans across several categories, including education and skills. At IBM, we believe that the future belongs to all of us. It's not just to some of us. That is why for a little more than a century now, we continue to strive for access, inclusion, equity, and equality by providing our best technology and talent to help people across the globe to build skills for the future, especially now now the technology and jobs are really changing very, very fast. The World Economic Forum, in their latest Future of Jobs report on workforce trends in 20 economies, reports that over 42% of all jobs will change significantly by 2022. And it will require new skills such as analytics or design thinking, in addition to soft skills or essential professional skills such as problem solving, critical thinking, and communication skills, which actually apply to all industries and cultures. We at IBM are very much aware of this, and we are being at the forefront of technological innovations. And we've seen how technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud, and automation are radically changing jobs. AI, or artificial intelligence, will change 100% of all jobs in the next 5 to 10 years, according to a 2019 IBM Institute for Business Value report. In the next 3 years, as many as 120 million workers in the world's 12 largest economies may need to be retrained to adapt to new types of jobs created or changed by AI alone. To further complicate matters, this current pandemic has caused us unprecedented, powerful force of disruption. But as the IBM CEO, Arvind Krishna, has said, it's also a critical turning point that has accelerated digital transformation for all of us like never before. We know this even for the Philippines. As they say, COVID has actually accelerated everybody skilling up for digital transformation. We're seeing this every day as we support our clients to rapidly transform their organizations and to be able to provide contactless delivery of their services to their customers, like when you bank, you shop, you order food, you work remotely or online. As educators, decision makers, or nonprofits for advancing education, I'm sure you're also navigating your way through COVID-19 to ensure that proper learning competencies and skills are effectively delivered to our learners while they stay at home or wherever they are. Now more than ever, education systems need all the support it needs to stay on pace, to accelerate even in today's new normal, as technology and job requirements are changing much faster than education systems. Undoubtedly, there is a demand for workers with STEM skills needed in a digital economy. But do we have the supply? At IBM in the US, back in 2011, we already did our own math on why US students weren't that good, even in some basic subjects as math and science, and these were essential to landing these new technology jobs. We encountered the same problem in IBM many, many years ago, even for our own industries, and having the problem of providing sustainable talent pool for the future, not just for IBM, but for the countries we serve. They found out that this is largely because STEM studies are not sufficiently emphasized and that students are not staying in school. Sa Pilipinas, alam natin yan, some of them, our problems really are, they start, but we can't even sustain them being in school. There are many, many reasons why. So we call them the undermotivated. As you can see in this chart, the low number and decline through the years in STEM-related degrees, as well as the high percentage of students not graduating from community colleges, that's what they call in the US, which results in the US not doing well in math and science literacy. And this is despite of the fact that STEM workers earn 30% more per hour than non-STEM workers, and the availability of new tech jobs for associate degree holders only. There is definitely a disconnect what is taught in schools and the new skills employers are seeking in their employees. IBM realized that schools alone cannot solve the skills gap challenge. Hence, IBM's Pathways to Technology Early College High Schools, or PTEC, was born. Launched in 2011 by the New York City Department of Education, the City University of New York, and IBM, PTEC was designed to fill the skills gaps in the economy and break the cycle of poverty, bridging the gap between high school, community college, and industry. PTEC opens new pathways to better prepare our young people for college and for what we call new-collar careers, those requiring more than a high school diploma, but not necessarily a 4-year degree or what we call an associate's degree. For us here, it's like the middle of a high school graduate and a college graduate. New collar is different from the blue or white collar that we are all used to. It is the currency of the future, and it is about skills and capabilities, not just degrees or competencies. Unlike other education models that only fulfill some criteria to measure success, at the heart of PTEC model are 6 key tenets or design principles that together address these challenges, providing a seamless and supported pathway for students as they make their way along the education to career continuum and becoming the blueprint upon which all PTEC schools are built upon. IBM believes that public, private, and not-for-profit sectors should partner with one another to create a new model for STEM education and workplace preparedness. To foster collaboration among these communities, IBM developed PTEC, a career and technical education model that emphasizes STEM subjects and integrates free public high schooling with community college. The model spans grades 9 to 14, enabling students to earn both their high school diploma and industry-recognized associate's degree. This new breed of grades 9 to 14 public school pairs students who are admitted with no special tests or requirements, hindi pwedeng pumili, with mentors from the business community. It is not only internship, but mentors. Affiliated companies also provide practical and project-based learning and even paid internships. Their industry partners will give PTEC students with the opportunity to be first in line for jobs once they graduate from the program. It means to say they will be first to be interviewed. Since its inception, PTEC has now expanded to 220 schools across 28 countries, 600 industry partners, and serving over 150,000 students globally. It has produced significant results. Its first cohort of students in the US graduated at 4 times the US on-time national community college graduation rate and 5 times for low-income families. To date, there are now 246 graduates, out of which 36 have been hired into full-time positions after finishing their associate's degree. The rest are able to continue for further studies because that's what they wish to do. In the Philippines, we launched PTEC in 2019 in partnership with the city of Taguig, and the Taguig City University, or TCU. PTech in the Philippines is a 4-year program starting from senior high school, grade 11, to grade 14, or second-year college, earning the student a K-12 diploma and an associate's degree. There are currently 60 students from 2 sections who are being prepared in 3 different pathways. Upon graduation, they can apply to some of these pathways that we have already defined as an IBM as an industry partner, such as robotics process automation. That is their job for the future, RPA developers, software testers, or user interface, user experience graphics specialists, or they may opt to continue their education. In other words, PTech graduates will be career and college ready. In their first year, they were exposed to various workplace learning activities that included technical and professional skills such as cybersecurity, fundamentals of Java, communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, and self-management. They also interacted with many IBM coaches and mentors, including some industry industry partners outside of IBM. They will eventually take on projects as well as skills-based and paid internships. TCU President Dr. Juan Birion will be represented today by Dr. Rosales, and they will be sharing more about their PTech experience later in the panel discussion. And here's some good news for you students and even teachers. In February this year, because of lessons we learned from the initial years of implementation of the base PTech program, IBM launched Open PTech. It is a free digital education platform focused on workplace learning and digital skills, another great opportunity to prepare people for new collar careers. The platform builds on the PTech program, and it equips 14 to 20-year-old learners and educators, as well as individuals with foundational technology competencies. It contains training modules in technologies such as AI, cloud computing, cybersecurity, professional skills like design thinking, which are all highly valued in the market. Open PTech skills the most essential workplace preparation elements of the PTech program, making it available to more students who would otherwise not have access to innovative digital learning. Imagine having thousands or even millions of our kababayans having access to this free resource. Content in the portal is not only from IBM. Our various partners help us provide high-quality custom-created content for both students, the learners, and the teachers. Open PTech content is delivered Netflix style. It means delivered asynchronously. You can consume it anytime, anywhere. Open PTech courses are easy to consume because they are bite-sized and self-paced. Imagine trying to start a course bago sila magtinda, maglaba, at kung ano-ano pa, at pwede nilang ituloy after. Most learning courses require a laptop, but we have made Open PTech also accessible to a large extent on mobile devices. What you see on screen was an example of a Cherry Mobile that we used to extract Open PTech courses. What's more, Open PTech learning modules lead to free digital badges that students can share on their online resumes. Digital badges are like mini diplomas, if you think about it. Using the platform, students preparing for internships and new collar jobs earn the same badges as professionals in the field. I invite you to try it yourself soon. You can go to ptech.org/openptech. So what else can we learn today, and how do we apply the mindset of thinking longer term for the good with gains in the near term? Later in the program, you'll meet a couple of my IBM colleagues who will share their PTech experiences in their respective countries. We have invited Jade Moffat to share with us IBM's first PTech implementation in Asia Pacific, and she will share with us why public-private partnerships with a shared vision of contributing to the national agenda and reaching as many underserved students proved to be a very critical success factor of PTech's implementation in Australia. They have gone far and wide in Australia, very deep already in this program. Jade leads also the AP PTech program for IBM. So we are very lucky to have Jade spend some time with us this afternoon. A little bit closer to home, 2 hours away, we will hear as well from Lisa Chen, again 2 hours away by flight, from a PTech Taiwan experience. She will talk about how she brought together an ecosystem of partners to cover a dispersed population from the north to the south of Taiwan. She will also share with us how she's connecting her PTech students, taking advantage of the big world out there and bringing them to the PTech students. They now become part of a global community without even leaving the country, not necessarily leaving the country. Throughout today's session, we will also be able to chat and engage with you. So please feel free to reach out via the Zoom chat box. Also, we'd like to hear back from you, so please send us your feedback later. The idea in the end for all of this sharing is that this isn't about just IBM. We are sharing with you the PTech design principles and experience because we have already created and tested this unique educational model in many countries. We may need to tweak it a bit for the Philippines and in the various LGUs as we implement this, or maybe as we coordinate with DepEd, DICT, and all other stakeholders. But definitely it is to equip underserved communities with the skills they will need to thrive in the digital area. Let me be please simple about this. In short, we don't need to start from scratch. If you may, we may simply need to come all together, government, industry, and academe, and contribute to make it happen for the sake of our children and the future generations of Filipinos. Let me end by sharing with you a picture that you may imagine the future. If you were a PTech graduate, you will put on your CV, PTech grad. If somebody were to hire you, and believe me, I've already tested this concept with some of our clients and industry partners, right? Rather than going through many interviews, you know that when somebody tells you PTech, there are the fundamental hard and soft skills that are necessary from a STEM track for the types of jobs that we have defined, or we will define for our industry partners for the future. This same PTech graduate can then go into a typical office, whether they are agile workspaces or not. They may also go to a manufacturing plant that supports a digital supply chain at the top part. They may go also on the left, like go to a command center, which is maybe a cyber security operations center or threat intelligence center or some integrated command center. And naturally, they can also work from home, work in the office, or work at the plant. Why is all this possible? Is because they would have the necessary skills to work anywhere with the fundamental information and skills that they would now have learned in PTech. Our aim is to make sure it is integrated with the DepEd curriculum, and we will work with you to make sure that it is something we can make possible for the Philippines with your help. So we encourage also the LGUs to make sure this is actually one that we can breathe into life in your respective areas. We want to serve the underserved and the undermotivated. So please, let's help each other. Maraming salamat po and stay safe, everyone, and have a good rest of the afternoon. Dr. Lizanne, back to you.
Maraming salamat, Eileen, for that very insightful and inspiring keynote speech, and also for introducing to us #GoodTechIBM. So, na-remember ko yung pinaka-catchy word doon, ano? The future belongs to all of us. So, thank you for caring for the future generation. So now let's proceed to the main part of the program, which is, of course, the presentations of our highly regarded speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Michael Jackson. He will talk about the future of work using the futures thinking lens. Dr. Michael Jackson is the founder and chairman of Shaping Tomorrow. His specific area of research is sustainable business futures. He is known in conference platforms for speaking on business subjects, including futures, sustainability, customer loyalty and retention, business process re-engineering, change management, and other allied fields. With over 30 years experience in business management in the UK, North America, and Europe, he has significant exposure to corporate banking, consumer finance, and strategic foresight. Dr. Jackson studied at Salford University, Manchester, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Electronics, and he is a US accredited MBA in Operations Research, and he was conferred the honorary doctorate degree in business administration by the University of Wolverhampton in 1997. Friends, please welcome Dr. Michael Jackson. Magandang hapon po, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Lizanne. Good afternoon and magandang hapon. I'm going to talk to you today about futures thinking and the jobs of tomorrow, but I'm not going to present the presentation myself because at 7 o'clock this morning, Philippines time, the robot did it for me. Her name's Athena. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything she told me about the future, but for those of you that want the full analysis, including all her graphical analysis, you've got my email address there. The robot currently has something like 450,000 sources in her system, another 450,000 forecasts, and I asked her this morning to look at the future of jobs, and she found me 8,072 forecasts in a few seconds. On the right-hand side, you can see where she found those from, and on the left is her overall analysis. So what did she find? Well, again, I'm not going to deal with the evidence of the evidence on the right-hand side. Those of you that want to read more about the driving forces of change in jobs can do that later. But the robot has not only found those forecasts, but she's determined which ones are the ones that I ought to be talking about to you today. So as many as 375 million workers, or 14% of the global workforce, would have to switch occupations or acquire new skills by 2030 because of automation and artificial intelligence, which you heard from Ms. Aileen earlier. Between 40 and 160 million women will globally need to transition between occupations by 2030, often into higher skilled roles. And I think that's particularly important for the Philippines. And as has been mentioned already, COVID-19 is accelerating the move to remote working, different types of working, etc. And what might have taken 10 years might now only take 2 or 3 years. So we're all affected by that change. As far as trends are concerned, the robot picked out that there'll be a global decline in the proportion of populations in paid employment in the coming decades as a result of automation. We may very well find ourselves in universal basic income, not working at all, and finding ways to make money out of our own endeavors and our hobbies rather than being paid by an employer. And there will be many industries where we see new jobs arising, such as renewables, drones, and growth in jobs like social care, nursing, and data scientists, as you'll see later. Experts predict a net balance between the two. The losses of jobs will be balanced by new jobs, but I'm not so sure about that. Shaping Tomorrow is not so sure about that. We think the danger is that the unskilled will join the ranks of the permanently unemployed, and that employers may very well just let them go with no prospects of any work into the future, causing lots of inequality. Interestingly enough, 90% of employees around the world are open to new job opportunities, and 45% see higher compensation as a key reason to make a job change. And that really says that loyalty's gone out of the window. People will move and take jobs that suit them, suit their pay, etc., causing some problems for businesses that want to retain their staff. As a consequence, 1/5 of workers believe technology in the future will change very quickly, and another half say they think it will be quick. So we're dealing with a majority of people that think that technology is going to take over their roles, and therefore you're going to get a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And in the coming years, the business world will no doubt be affected by continued periods of crisis that will make remote and virtual work part of our daily lives. We shouldn't assume that COVID is a one-off. It may not be another disease that will hit us, but there are various driving forces in the world that will cause businesses to want to be have more remote work, virtual work, etc. And we will all be affected by that. I smiled at this one because it says virtual reality and augmented reality will replace work trips, and individuals could meet investors, present to existing and new clients, and collaborate with global teams from their desk or living room. Now, we're not using virtual reality and augmented reality at Shaping Tomorrow just yet, although we're working on it. But the fact is, we've been meeting investors, presenting to existing new clients, and collaborating with global teams since 2003. And we've always been a work-at-home organization, and we've always been virtual in terms of our desires to work together. And our team is all over the world and rarely meets with each other except by electronic tools. In terms of weak signals, by 2030, automation will displace at least 15% of workers, and at most 14% of the global workforce will need to switch job categories. In this, I'm not sure I agree with Miss Aileen. I know as a CEO, it's very difficult to get the top teams to focus on changing jobs, and we'll probably see quite a lot of inertia before we see really big, large numbers of jobs disappearing as a result of automation. However, we might see quite a lot of jobs disappearing just as a result of the coronavirus. And the spread of intelligent machines and new technology will affect the world of work in unpredictable ways. And Shaping Tomorrow's role in that process is to try and spot those changes early so that our clients can be able to adapt at speed and not cause large quantities of people to lose their jobs. New and emerging technologies changing the world of work will provide a solid foundation in computing and will undoubtedly be useful in the future. The uncertainty of the emerging world of work will require a stronger emphasis on building employees' leadership capacities in more complex roles. Managers and leaders will have to learn how to lead differently in the future, and that requires a lot of education and a lot of competence building. And as we've already seen, stay-at-home work and learning is growing. And I, for one, don't really want to go back and work in an office. It's much easier to work whenever I want at home, produce my work whenever I want, and not have to spend time in the Philippine traffic in Manila to get to an office. Maturing things, the public and private sectors must work together. This has already been said by Ms. Aileen. Everybody must work together to develop job training programs that will meet the disruptive challenges of technology, changing demographics, global and geopolitics, and societal changes, or we will see quite a lot of protest and again, fear. In terms of declining, the number one cause of depression, according to the robot, in looking at what the experts say, is actually work-related stress. And that's going to increase if we don't actually pay attention to our people and train them well and make them feel happy that they've got a reliable job and one that they can enjoy as they move through their career. I think this is one that is particularly important to the Philippines. 940 million people around the world work in the agricultural sector. which is projected to account for 60% of working lost hours due to heat stress. Climate change will almost certainly mean that in certain countries, probably the Philippines included, we will see so much heat that people cannot go out and do agricultural work or even construction work during the day. And both of those issues will create productivity decline without robot replacement. So we will likely see, and we already know that's true from our own scanning, that robots are being increasingly used in the agricultural sector to replace agricultural workers. There's a warning from the United States Special Envoy that there is an impending global education crisis with wide and persistent divide that could exclude 400 million girls from employment by 2030. My own daughter is stuck at home and has been since March, cannot get to school, the school's closed. This is actually ruining her ability to learn. She stopped learning because she's fed up with doing it herself. And I suspect that we'll see more of that into the future, which is what this is saying. In terms of bubbles, nearly 3/4 of executives predict significant disruption in the next 3 years, compared to only 26% in 2018. And nearly all organizations are taking action to prepare for the future. And again, Ms. Aileen said that educational organizations are running far behind what organizations are having to cope with, and they need to catch up in terms of being able to provide the skills the organizations need in order to survive and thrive again. Radically changed. You think of the restaurant sector, you think of cinemas, which probably won't survive this process, especially now Disney has chosen not to put its latest film into a cinema, but to put it online directly. Lots of industries will probably disappear as a result of the COVID virus far faster than they would have done if we hadn't had that crisis. In terms of shocks, 430 million enterprises in hard-hit sectors are at risk of serious disruption, and nearly half of the global workforce are at risk of job losses, not necessarily, as I said, from automation. Now, this chart is one of the ones that I am going to show you. It's one that the machine can produce automatically. In this particular case, it's telling you which are the job areas in terms of sectors that are likely to face big change in the next 5 to 10 years, and which ones are further out. And it's picking out here that shortages in software and STEM talent will abound. We don't have enough people being trained in those areas, either in the Philippines or in the world. And so one of the constraints on the can't move fast enough because we don't have enough technical expertise. As I've already said, food and agriculture and the environment will require more workers and robots if we're to feed 50% more people that are expected on the earth by 2100. However, media and entertainment and automotive will take a hard hit, primarily because of automation, driverless cars, etc., etc. But that shouldn't deter us from thinking that all sectors are at risk of dramatic automation. Even though education is further out, things like real estate are further out, there are somebody somewhere working on disrupting every single sector in the world right now. I found this one for jobs of the future. I've got some specific jobs here that I think will be lost, particularly in the Philippines. People who are using sewing machines, of which my wife is one of them. She has a group of people who are busy making clothes. I don't think they're going to survive much longer. Taxi and truck drivers, service and retail assistants, and call centers will all be jobs of the past. And I didn't have time, since the robot produced this morning, to figure out what percentage of jobs there are in the Philippines in those areas, but it's very substantive. I think those of you that live here know. But many jobs, on the other hand, will be enhanced and new ones will be created, some of which have yet to be invented. And STEM jobs will be most in demand. So that's a really big area for future education of Philippine people. And on the right-hand side, you've got a list here that I found on the types of jobs that are likely to change in the next 10 years out to 2028. And if you look closely at that, you'll see many of them are STEM related. In terms of constraints, the certainty of a global recession in 2021, on top of the highly disruptive effects of the present crisis, increases in protectionist demands on virtually every government, and problems with demands for state aid, regulatory relaxation, job creation schemes, and short-term subsidies are the sort of things that President Duterte and most other governments in the world are looking at right now. And most countries will be constrained about how much they can do in the next few years because of the financial burden of the coronavirus. It won't move, come on. Dilemmas. A continued crisis in youth employment will imperil the entire economy. If we went dug deeper into the numbers, we find that many youth will not have jobs. They're not the people that the employers want. They want people that have got experience, and they're not prepared to spend money on youth. This is a really serious problem, I think, for the world that needs addressing by education. People at the same time are crying out for help. Enabling workers to adapt to new technologies and other fundamental changes will be critical to every nation's economic well-being. By 2022, the job skills most required by employers will include not only proficiency with new technologies, but I think that robots can do almost anything that a person can do if it's not involving creativity, emotional intelligence, and critical thinking skills. So we have to teach our youth and reteach people that are older to be creative, to have emotional intelligence, and to have critical thinking skills if we are going to compete against robots. In terms of extremes, by 2030, the equivalent of more than 2% of total working hours worldwide is projected to be lost every year because it's too hot to work or because workers have to work at a slower pace. And that, again, creates a really big crisis coming forward as climate change. I'll skip those and just leave that there. Come back to this one. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions you might ask me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Jackson. I hope you'll stay with us until later this afternoon for questions from our participants. And also thank you for introducing to us Athena. And Athena made the drivers, trends, and weak signals on the futures of jobs for tomorrow. So now let's move on to our second speaker, who will discuss the future of work from the perspective of employers. Attorney Josel Batapa is the co-founder, former president, and current vice president of the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines, or NICP. She served as city councilor of Bacolod for 9 years and founded the Bacolod Negros Occidental Federation for Information and Communications Technology, or BENEFIT, in 2008. And she leads stakeholders to come together to promote Bacolod as a destination for ICT-enabled jobs and investments. Throughout the years, she has assisted both local and national government units, especially in designing programs that will complement the educational system and integrate ICT therein to produce a more competent and job-ready workforce. Her passion is to help build ICT councils in the countryside as a venue for academe, government, and industry to come together and develop strategies to generate ICT-enabled jobs and investments and drive innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my kababayan, my fellow Ilongga, Attorney Josel Batapa. Hi, Sel.
Hello, Dean Lizan. Good afternoon to everyone. I just would like to start my slide. Okay. So I hope you can see my slide. Good afternoon to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I enjoyed listening to the two speakers, especially the data and the figures that they shared. This afternoon, actually, I only have 10 slides, and I don't know how much value my sharing this afternoon will be to our audience, but I want to say that from the international or global view that Dr. Jackson and Ms. Yao presented, I'd like ourselves now to go back closer to home, to the Philippines, and probably to the provinces where some of us come from. Many of the jobs that we need today are needed not necessarily only in Metro Manila, but also in the countryside. So before I start, I just would like to mention that currently I am actually a past president, no longer a vice president of the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines. And in our audience today is our current president. Our current president is the president of the Zamboanga ICT Council, Mr. Michael Lim, who is watching together with all the other ICT councils. We now have around 100 ICT councils in the Philippines, representing cities, provinces, and municipalities in this country, coming together to promote jobs. So I'd like to start by sharing with you what we call in strategic management as our sandbox. Because what I wish to do today is, in fact, I did not prepare a manuscript. What I wish to do today is to veer away from presenting facts and even data coming from different sources, and be able to share insights from my work over the last 16 years as a job generation advocate in the Philippines. It has been an inspiring and enriching journey for me to have spent almost half of my life trying to attract jobs to this country where jobs is or are most needed. So just to explain to you where my insights will come, I have been for the last 16 years, as Dean Lisan said, assisting investors. Over the last 16 years, I have helped almost 200 companies set up shop in different parts of the country as a lawyer and as an ICT advocate. And the process is really very tedious, from the first call to the first email to the first due diligence visit. Sometimes it is quite unnerving to be the only Filipino in a room of 10 foreigners, all holding top key positions and wanting to ask questions. Primarily, why is it viable and beneficial for us to locate and invest in the Philippines? That is the biggest question any job generation advocate would face every now and then. So, as I said, I have helped several companies set up. Some of them, of course, have decided to look elsewhere, to go to other countries. I have lost several companies to to India, to Guatemala, to even the close Asian countries, neighboring countries that we have. I have also lost several investors to my neighboring cities, especially when I'm pitching for Bacolod and for Negros Occidental. But more often than not, I would pitch for the whole country. I have pitched in various occasions, not only inside the Philippines, but also in the US. I have been to the IBM Research Triangle in 2012. I was given the opportunity to meet I think around 20 Filipinos working in the IBM Research Triangle, holding top positions. And I was so proud of that day because they were all from the Philippines. They were given a chance to meet me, and I was also given the chance to ask them questions. So I also wear the hat of bringing together stakeholders, especially for them to engage in conversations with the industry. Over the last 16 years, Dean Lisan has given me this topic. I said, but I am not an employer myself. But when I tried to look deeper, I realized I've been in touch and closely in communication with various industry players for over the last 16 years in various ICT verticals, from, as mentioned earlier, voice-enabled, non-voice. You have BPO, software, healthcare information management, the creative industry, knowledge process outsourcing, and even startups and techpreneurs. So my fourth sandbox is guiding the stakeholders. As mentioned earlier, my passion is to help local government units, cities, and provinces to develop a set of strategies aimed towards attracting jobs and investments to their particular localities. So it has been a very rewarding experience because I was able to hear right from the horse's mouth the concerns, the constraints in in those provinces, in these provinces, and in these regions. And it's very important that as a design thinker, many of us probably are, when we design solutions, we really go into the, going down to the level of our stakeholders and understanding their constraints, their unmet needs, and their limitations. And then I'm happy to share with you that a year ago, I was given the opportunity to serve as a consultant for the digital transformation committee or team of Senator Sani Angara. Aside from my being a city councilor for 9 years, I have also worked with various local legislators in creating policies affecting local, regional, and now, as I said, national level. So policy insights is also one of the things I have done in the last several years. And of course, as right now, what we're doing is engaging public discussion. That is what I'd be able to undertake or accomplish out of this presentation. So now I'd like to share with you, my slide is only 8, and these are all basically insights of this 60 years of experience and listening to all the points of view and the data and the things that many of our stakeholders would like to convey. So I'd like to begin by saying, this is actually a cliche. The best way they say to predict the future is to create it. Now, as mentioned earlier by the 2 speakers, the future is even quite uncertain. Many of the things or many of the numbers, I would wish to share numbers, but right now, I don't think we like to hear numbers, especially increase in numbers, increase in the number of COVID cases. Just today, we read in the news, we have a very big shrink of our GDP, 16.5, the all-time lowest, all-time highest since 1981. So I think we would like to veer away from numbers. And right now, as we speak, the future is in fact uncertain. But I'd like to still believe that we can still do it as a country if we work together. But we need leaders to lead us, leaders in the academe, leaders in government, leaders in various sectors, and we need the stakeholders to co-create that future for us. What are the factors affecting job generation in the different parts of this country? Over the last decade, my research and my actual immersion in the localities has led me to 4 areas. One is job generation and investment generation in different cities, provinces, and regions is affected primarily by policy innovation. Mostly by national policies, because the Philippines is not, we do not have a federalized structure. So incentives are actually centralized in the national level, such that all our business tax incentives are centralized in the national level. So whatever the offering of the national level, whatever the taxation process of the national level, except for some areas of taxation like real estate, like local business taxes, these are all affected by national level policies. In the local level, job generation is affected by the policies of the locality, of the city, of the provinces, such that we need to harness our local policymakers to take a look at and really study how different industries are affected by policy-making decisions. The second box is a business environment, very important. Here we take a look at all the factors. We take a look at all the key actors, fulfilling their mandate according to the laws and policies of that particular area or the sector that they circulate. So the key actors that the result or that affect business environment in the particular city would be the academe, the government, of course, in that particular area, and you have the business sector, and in general, the community. It's also very important that we take a look at the role of our industry and the extent of how much they collaborate with the local stakeholders. Normally, national players would have that sense or would have that sort of a wall in dealing when they deal with local stakeholders, probably because they basically been more exposed to Manila companies or Manila stakeholders and not in the provinces and not in the countryside. So that's why we 8 years ago or 10 years ago found it very beneficial for us to promote the creation of an ICT Council, which becomes a platform for all these three sectors, academic, government, and industry, to work together and serve as the catalyst for jobs to come to the provinces, and also answer questions as fast as possible, with very quick turnaround time, especially for investors and especially for industry. Much of the insights actually that we get as local stakeholders must come and need to come from the industry, as earlier emphasized by the two speakers. The fourth box is stakeholders engagement. Sustainability is affected by how much we actually inspire and engage our stakeholders to work together. Scalability in terms of skills is very important, as emphasized earlier by the two speakers. I don't need to repeat it anymore, but many of the skills that we now have in so many industry insights, in so many global insights, are said to be erased and removed from the face of the earth. 20 to 30%, in one survey I read, 20 to 30% of the jobs that will emerge in the next 2 years are not even existing today. 30 to 40% of the skills that will be needed in the next 2 to 3 years are not even being offered today. So in short, it's very important that we engage and involve our stakeholders to ensure that scalability of our job generation campaign is going to be ensured. Community should be part of our platform, of our campaign and advocacy to generate jobs. So these are the 4 key important areas which I saw over the last decade as very much crucial and affecting principally job generation, not only in the national level, but also in the local level. In the policy innovation space, which is the first box, I just would like to take this opportunity, because our time is very short, to show us what would the future look like if we have innovative policies in place. As mentioned earlier, wearing my hat as a consultant for digital transformation policies under the Office of Senator Angara, our team is working on a more comprehensive set of laws and policies that is very much focused on really transforming the Philippines into a digital nation, not only in the industry side, not only in the academe side, but even in the public sector side. So I'm happy to share with the body that we have submitted Senate Bill 1470, which is basically an omnibus bill composed of different components that will not only focus on one area, but create a more comprehensive approach to transforming the Philippines. So these are the different components of the bill. You have digital components framework for citizens. This is very complementary to the keynote message of our friend from IBM, where we really want to work into calibrating our workforce according to global standards in terms of digital skills. We want to see a Philippine digital strategy, which is required by the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, the UN arm for IT. We want to see more digital inclusion, not only young people learning digital skills, even housewives, even senior citizens and people with disabilities. We want to see more libraries and learning hubs, and we want to focus more on digital entrepreneurship, and of course, empowering our government workers to really embrace digital service, civil service, and so on. So this is essentially, in a nutshell, what we want to focus on in terms of policy innovation. I don't want to look backwards, look at the past, and examine all the other policies. But right now we are at a point in our lives as a country where we need to move forward, where we need to, plan ahead, move ahead, given the situation that we now are in. The second major bill that we have pushed in the Senate is the National Digital Workforce Bill, which I think would greatly affect our success in the area of job generation. I cannot overemphasize the need for us to really come together and create jobs. Job creation now is no longer just a business of government. It's already a business of everyone and of every sector. So this particular bill hopes to build a supportive ecosystem for ICT-enabled jobs, provide skills and incentives, skills training and incentives, access to different partners and global promotions. We want to harmonize all government agencies and services with industry-calibrated programs for digital workers. The thing that we have observed, especially from the local level, is it seems to us that our national agencies are not synchronized in the delivery of job generation approach and strategies. And we want to see a more harmonious set of strategies towards generating jobs, especially in the regional level. So these are the components of our bill, to see that there is a holistic approach to growing the global presence and brand of the Filipino digital workforce. So for this box, which is policy innovation, we want to see more and more local government units also take the cue from industry and even from the national level, that we need to move our strategies from how we have been doing it now to a more responsive, to a more industry calibrated, and to a more forward-looking platform or set of strategies. My next slide is business environment. So the second box has something to do with the business environment. In terms of business environment, normally when an investor or a company comes to the locations, to our locations, cities and provinces, they would have a set of criteria which they would look at. So this is an example of a normal, a traditional list that investors bring to the countryside, especially to the regions, and which serves as a template for their due diligence and for their interviews of local stakeholders. So the three major areas would be infrastructure, risk management, and support systems. In the infrastructure side, we focus on, companies focus on availability of real estate. In the ICT sector, we have the so-called IT parks and IT buildings, which is very important, especially in the need for these companies to enjoy national tax incentives under the Philippine Economic Zone. And of course, infrastructure, which is also required by the Board of Investments, depending on the industry where you want to come in the Philippines. So you have manufacturing, you have IT, you have healthcare, you have tourism, economic zone. So these are the different types. You have connectivity. Connectivity has always been a challenge in the Philippines, and I hope this is an area which we really focus on. Even as we speak, countries are now trying to think of ways how to beef up their connectivity. It is said that when the pandemic started, 30 to 40%, there was a 30 to 40% increase in traffic in the internet space. So we have to think ahead and really also ensure that we have connectivity, especially in the countryside, if we want to develop more jobs and opportunities, especially in the countryside. You have utilities, you have power, water. These are also main concerns of our companies. Transportation is important. Oftentimes, there are companies who would really care about the mode of transportation for their workers to come to work, the proximity of the offices and the workplaces to their homes or to their locations. And then, of course, costs. In the area of cost, you have cost of doing business, cost of rental rates, even cost of labor is very important. But in this area, we are quite competitive compared to other countries. The second is risk management. They always, the private sector and business would always want to have government support, the support that will allow them to grow as a business, to scale in terms of headcount, in terms of numbers. Peace and order is very much a concern. It is something that is very important, especially in ensuring or in enticing companies to come to your location. And then, of course, natural hazards. This goes without saying that companies will take a look at the risks that are present in your locality, probably natural or even man-made risks. And then, of course, support systems very important. Health and housing is very important. Tourism, quality of life is also a factor. When investors come to our cities and provinces, they would usually ask what are the places where they can, hold activities, and the accommodation, especially if the company is a multinational company. Social and cultural attributes of a particular city or province is also very important. But I made a bracket at the side of this particular presentation, which states COVID-19 resiliency and recovery. Because right now, this scorecard, we call it in the ICT space, is not going to be that effective unless we put in place strategies that will address infrastructure, risk, and support systems from the vantage point of COVID-19 health strategies. The world has been disrupted by this pandemic. Might as well also include that factor in all our business plans and our strategies if we are to advocate for more jobs and investments in the country. Now, in the third box, we have industry collaboration. It's very important that we maintain academe, government, and industry collaboration consistently. Much of the accomplishments that we have in the NICP was done because of a very close industry collaboration, or a very close collaboration with industry. From around 900,000 jobs in 2010, we now have around 1.3 to 1.5 million IT BPO jobs in the Philippines, and around 600 or 45% of those jobs are no longer just in Manila, but are spread across the whole country. And I'm proud to say that it is the handiwork of the ICT councils and the local ICT stakeholders who really did their homework and reach out to industry on a very regular and permanent basis. So what is the role of industry in job generation? First is policy innovation. The industry should come in to craft and to help craft national and local policies, mechanisms focused on job generation. We have the tendency to sit in our offices and just do whatever we need to do. But at the end of the day, we need to pay it forward and share notes and extend guidance and assistance to those who craft the rules and the policies for a particular community or for a particular country. So in a way, I am very grateful to industry leaders who have really reached out to our policymakers in terms of guiding these policymakers in creating this significant and sustainable and responsive strategies that are integrated in our policies. At the same time, I am also very grateful over the last 16 years to those policymakers, both in the local and national level, which reach out or who reach out to the industry in terms of asking their insights, asking their ideas and suggestions on how to make policies more responsive to the needs of the industry. And then the second is talent development. Very important. I think a recent survey showed that for countries who wish to really survive the impact, especially the economic impact of this pandemic, they must invest in talent. And needless to say, this particular area is very crucial, especially if we want to grow number of jobs. And right now the call is to grow new jobs as a result of the jobs that are disrupted because of the pandemic. So it's important that the industry collaborate and assist in the calibration of the workforce, sharing opportunities and mechanisms for our young people to be part of industry immersion, apprenticeship, sharing of hiring and testing tools. Normally now, even in the provinces, our advocates would usually ask our companies to share their specific metrics and hiring tools in identifying the right talent for their requirements, for their job requirements. In the area of upskilling and reskilling and stepping up the value chain, let's say if we are now in the voice industry, we want to move up to artificial intelligence enabled industries, we want to move up to blockchain, to data science driven jobs and industries or opportunities, then we need to involve the industry in the strategies to reskill and upskill our workforce. And then finally, the third box, which I see is very important as a role on the part of industry, is branding. Our companies, our investors are the ones who are actually promoting our localities. When the first IT company set up shop in Bacolod or in Cebu or in Iloilo or in different parts of the countryside, they become now the walking advertisers of that particular locality. They become now the ambassadors of our regions, of our cities to the world, that in this city there is such great talent, there is such great government support, and so you have to come and check this particular location out. So co-creation should be not only a role of the government, and I mean, branding should not only be the role of the government or even the local stakeholders, but I think that industry should also participate in creating a good brand for the country in terms of job generation and in terms of investment promotions. The fourth slide is, or the fourth box is stakeholders engagement, which is very important. To me, this basically resonates with what I have been doing over the last decade. Many of us, especially in government, we are very, we focus more on sharing what we do. We focus more, especially in the other institutions as well, in institutional entities. We focus more on highlighting the things that we offer. We focus more on highlighting the programs that we roll out. At the end of the day, as a design thinker, I feel that the focus should not only be on what we do, but the focus should also be on how we do it. It's very important that many of our programs, many of our strategies, many of our plans are also derived not only from a linear approach, meaning coming from the company perspective, coming from the industry perspective, but it has also to come from a process where we draw insights from our stakeholders. So in stakeholders engagement, which is primarily the main basis for ICT councils to exist over the last 10 or 12 years. In my case, I have been to more than 50 provinces, just helping these provinces create ICT councils to develop strategies in different areas. Well, primarily, the ICT councils focus on talent development, techpreneurship, helping startups, stepping up the value chain, improving the business environment of your city, e-governance, promotion of e-governance systems in different LGUs, and strengthening the organization. So this is the focus of the ICT Council. So over the last 10 years since the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines was created, we have worked with government, human resource sector, industry, and community. And I think the most important questions need to be asked from our stakeholders. On the part of government, we need to ask, how can the public sector provide an enabling environment for more jobs? We need to veer away from just looking at our role as regulators, as government officials who simply create laws. We need to take a look at the catalytic role of our government, creating strategies to help stakeholders and key actors come together to build the kind of ecosystem that is ideal for jobs. In the human resource side, it's very important that we understand our role, that at the end of the day, we are the sector that provide the talent, that provide the warm bodies for industry requirements. So the question is, how can the country or the city have a job-ready workforce? And many a times, this question have always been in the discussion table, in the ICT councils, even in the level of schools, where we engage local officials to take a look at their course offerings and to try to align it with industry requirements. And then the third sector is industry, and the question is, how can the industry create more jobs and more value? We are very thankful over the last several years that a lot of industries are paying it forward with scholarships, with free trainings, with sharing their testing materials, with sharing their, different skills documents in order to be shared to all the academe and human resource players in a particular location. So it's very important that we continue this industry academe collaboration in order to come up with relevant strategies for job generation. And of course, finally, and most important is community. Engaging the community to be part of the process of attracting jobs, of attracting opportunities to our cities, to our provinces. Basically, these four areas affect the campaign for job generation and investment promotion in a particular city. And I wish that this micro view of what is happening in the local level and our efforts will also become a template for our national policymakers. Normally, in the national level, our approach is top to bottom. But at the end of the day, given all the things that are now happening with the pandemic, I think we also have to understand that there is a need for us to look at our stakeholders and gather insights from them and develop strategies according to the needs of a particular province and of a particular city. So I end by challenging everyone in different sectors, whether you are in the academe or you are in government or you are in the industry sector, to come together and realize that we cannot anymore afford to work in silos. We need to exchange notes. We need to gather as much insights, not only data, not only figures, but insights coming from stakeholders. And we need to break down the barriers, and in order for us to create a more seamless set of strategy to face the coming problems that this pandemic will still continue to cause us, one of which is the massive unemployment and loss of jobs. So to counter this, we have to create more jobs, and to create more jobs is no longer just the work of one sector. Creating jobs today is now everyone's business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Josel. for presenting the design thinking scheme, no, which is also part of futures thinking, and also taking into consideration the policy and governance aspect of the jobs for tomorrow. So for our third speaker, we have Jade Moffat. She will talk about IBM's P-Tech design principles and country case study. Ms. Jade Moffat Herman has been a passionate pathfinder in education for 20 years, starting as a high school teacher in Copenhagen, followed by stretches in low socioeconomic schools in London and Melbourne. Jade has since brought her passion for education to the corporate sector, leading education initiatives in corporate social responsibility at National Australia Bank, and most recently in her role as corporate social responsibility lead at IBM Australia and New Zealand. Jade believes that education is an issue that won't be solved by educators alone. And according to her, we all have a responsibility to mobilize our resources and focus them on education because it is connected to virtually everything else that goes on in a society as a whole. Jade holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Anthropology, graduate diploma education, and is currently finishing her MBA program. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jade Moffat. Hi, Jade.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Lizanne. Could I have my first slide, please?
Yeah, so may we request Attorney Josel to please stop share. Okay, we're waiting for Attorney Josel Batapat to stop share. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll move to the second slide, please. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Wonderful to be here, and thank you for joining us. So broadly, these are the areas I'm going to focus on today, taking you from the beginnings of P-Tech in Brooklyn, New York, almost 10 years ago now, explaining the P-Tech framework and letting you know a bit more about the Australian P-Tech experience, which started in 2016. And I'll also share with you what I regard as some of the critical success factors for P-Tech. I'm sure many of you would agree, or all of you would agree, that we're on the cusp of a new technological era. And it's really one that's radically transforming both business and public institutions. And it's reshaping our personal and professional lives at an exponential pace. But in my opinion, we need more than just the right technology. We need the right people with the right skills in the right jobs. And they're jobs that are just not about credentials alone these days. It's about capabilities. And what we find at IBM is these jobs do not always require a traditional four-year university degree, but it's about the right mix of in-demand technical skills to work with and benefit from the very latest technology. And that's from cloud and AI to cybersecurity, blockchain, and quantum computing. So I'm delighted to be able to talk to you today about P-Tech. Next slide, please. Thank you. So IBM, working with educators, created P-Tech in 2011. And at the time, it was really a groundbreaking public education model addressing both education and workforce development challenges. At the time, the New York Department of Education was talking to IBM about some of their key challenges. And it was really youth unemployment, underemployment, and the high attrition rates from high school and post-secondary environments. On the IBM side, it was observed by managers that university graduates were not necessarily job ready when they came out of their courses, and that sometimes the course content was actually outdated by the time they graduated their four-year degree. So increasingly, skill shortages were becoming apparent and hundreds of jobs were going unfilled every year. So in 2011, the first P-Tech school was born in Brooklyn, New York, and it really brought together IBM, the New York Department of Education, and the New York City University in a three-way partnership with high-level government support. And the aim was to address all of those issues that I've just outlined. Could I have the next slide, please? Such was the success of that original PTEC school in Brooklyn that it received very high profile support and recognition very quickly, including several visits by President Obama, as you can see in the photograph, as well as the Australian Prime Minister at the time, who visited and was very impressed with what he saw. At the time, there was nothing like PTEC in Australia, and $3.5 million was committed to establishing 13 PTEC schools around Australia. I'm really pleased to share with you that there's now PTEC schools in 28 countries globally, including, of course, the Philippines. Next slide, please. There's a number of key principles that underpin PTEC, and Miss Aileen shared some of those earlier today. In my opinion, it's really the case of the sum equaling more than the parts. So it's the combination of the principles when delivered together that really drives success. Number one is the concept of partnership. And it's interesting that the previous speaker said creating jobs is everyone's business. And I believe that education is everyone's business, because education of the future is not an issue that's going to be solved by educators alone. We've all got a responsibility to mobilize our resources, because education is vitally connected to every part of society, including industry, including government, and including community. Number two is the next level down. It's the how of the partnership. So it's integrating, where possible, high school and post-secondary coursework, and getting industry intimately involved by sharing details of their skills gaps and working to embed the required skills in the curriculum, starting at the high school level. And this includes technical, academically, and equally as important, the interpersonal or soft skills. Sometimes people think PTEC is just about technical skills, but it's absolutely not. Number three is giving students and teachers real exposure to the workplace. So examples of this are worksite visits. Every student is allocated an industry mentor, guest speakers, and in the later years, internship opportunities. The fourth is what we call open enrolment, which basically means that there are no special entrance exams or testing required for a PTEC school. Number five is the principle of no cost to the student for their post-secondary qualification. And the final principle is that a PTEC graduate should be first in line for interview for available entry-level jobs with PTEC industry partners. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit about Australia specifically, as I mentioned, the Australian Prime Minister was very impressed with his visit to New York. He launched PTEC in 2016 in Australia. Australia was the first country outside of the US to launch PTEC. There are now 13 PTEC schools in Australia, and more are planned. We have 3 more we're launching this year. 2,500 students have been exposed to PTEC, and we have 52 industry partners. So it's spread well beyond IBM's involvement and initial commitment, and 52 industry partners, both large and small, are involved now. There's a range of education pathways across the different schools. So examples are food technology, we've got aero engineering, we've got cybersecurity, defence, health, the list goes on. Internships are starting because we're further along the journey than the Philippines, and we will celebrate our first graduates next year, which is very exciting. Indeed, one PTEC student has already been employed by IBM for 10 hours a week. He is still completing his studies, but through his visits to the workplace, he really proved and demonstrated that he had the skills to take on a part-time job, and he has been rewarded by that. So he is our first hire through PTEC, and we're just so excited that he has come on board. By all accounts, PTEC is proving a real success in Australia, and we've managed to work within the existing education framework because PTEC is really designed to be customised to the local context. So you do have the guiding principles, but there's a lot of flexibility with the PTEC model. Next slide, please. I've been asked to share what I consider to be the critical success factors for PTEC. You'll see the map, which is the locations of all the PTEC schools. So you can see that they're in lots of different locations. And location is what I would regard as one of the make or break factors. So it would be different in different countries, but for the Australian context, what we've found is that we really wanted to find regions that had that reskilling need. So, for example, a school located pretty close to where I live, about a 90-minute drive. It's a town called Geelong. It was historically a car manufacturing hub, a bit like Detroit in the US, for example. And they've really struggled to diversify their local economy now that the car manufacturing has been largely offshored in Australia. So PTEC has shown itself to be a very good option in such towns. So we looked at the towns that were in that category, and then we created a heat map where we overlaid regions with suitable post-secondary education options, as well as emerging industries. And this is how we decided which areas that the PTEC schools would be best suited to. We found in Australia that these areas were located near but not within the boundaries of capital cities. So that was very interesting. Employers in these areas often cited skills gaps as young people tended to move to the capital cities for jobs, and employers were therefore supportive of PTEC's focus on engaging with potential employees at that much younger age and really exposing them to what opportunities existed. This brings me to the second critical success factor. It's wonderful to have high-level government support, but the sustainability of PTEC really relies, in my opinion, on local-level government, industry and community support, buy-in and sponsorship. That means having granular level detail about the skills gaps locally, employment and education trends, and of course, community support. I'd like to talk a little about diversity and inclusion. PTEC is focused on historically underserved students. So it's really about expanding opportunity. It's about a belief that the future of work and technology can't be limited to a privileged few. IBM is an innovation company that solves the hardest problems in business and society. This work requires a highly skilled, highly diverse workforce and an inclusive culture. It has to enable people from all backgrounds to thrive. And there's over 600 PTEC industry partners globally now, and they all share this philosophy of inclusion. Finally, PTEC schools are successful because of the dedicated PTEC industry liaison role. This role acts as the linchpin between industry, education, and acts as the day-to-day face of PTEC. You are very lucky to have Abigail Lisaska in this role in the Philippines, and she's bringing her passion for education and industry together. Next slide, please. COVID. It would be difficult to have a conversation about education or industry at the moment and not have COVID mentioned. We're living in increasingly dispersed, adaptable, globally connected, culturally agile, and a digitally accelerated world. And COVID has accelerated some of the clear trends we're seeing in the marketplace. What we're finding in Australia is that PTEC schools are some of the most adaptable, agile and progressive schools. They're strongly connected to their local communities and industry, and their leadership of those schools is really dynamic. In my opinion, COVID has really proven the model of investment in digital skills. In fact, responding to some of the trends we're seeing, IBM has recently launched Open PTech, as Ms. Aileen mentioned. This is a free digital learning platform. It's available to any student, teacher, or parent globally. It can be accessed at ptech.org, and it's really opening up the success of the PTech model globally to everyone. Everyone can access it now. Next slide, please. I've covered a lot here and I've been conscious of time, so I'd like to welcome anyone to reach out to me to discuss anything further, ask questions. I'll be happy to talk to you, and these are the ways that you can contact me. So thank you.
Thank you, Jade, for that presentation of a case study in Australia. And also, there are interesting questions in our chat box. If you have time, kindly go over. They are very engaged right now. Our fourth speaker will talk about PTech in Taiwan. And Ms. Lisa Chen serves as a manager of corporate social responsibility, IBM Greater China Group. And in this role, she leads her team to maximize the impact of IBM's investment in corporate citizenship across specific societal issues, especially in STEM, career development, and vocational education. IBM Citizenship seeks to identify and act upon new opportunities to apply its technological capabilities and industry expertise to address societal problems and to scale programs and initiatives to achieve maximum benefit. Lisa is an enthusiastic and committed volunteer, and she is a strong advocate for social welfare and education, and also especially for the underprivileged youth. So in 2019, Lisa was recognized with IBM Volunteer Excellence Award by IBM CEO, which is the highest form of global volunteer recognition given by the company to its employees. Friends, please welcome Ms. Lisa Chen. Hi, Lisa. Good afternoon. Okay. We're checking on the audio of Lisa. Yeah. Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me? Okay. I think we lost her, but the presentation is already uploaded. Yeah,
sorry,
Lisa. Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, Mabuhay Philippines. This is Lisa. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to introduce our practice of PTech in Taiwan. So this is a page to really give you an overview of PTech, what is going on in Taiwan. So we launched the school in 2018, started with 3 schools and 4 classes, and adding another school in 2019. So in this coming fall semester in September, we are expecting to have 16 classes with 500 students. So with this increasing number of school numbers and student numbers, we are really counting on a strong ecosystem, including our Ministry of Education, our industry partner across Taiwan, including North and Central and South Taiwan. So we can really form a strong ecosystem to support PTech community in Taiwan. So talking about industry partner, currently we have around 36 industry partners across different industry. So as some of you might know that in Taiwan, our industry portfolio, about almost 98% are composed with small and medium enterprises, which contribute around 79 workforce hiring in Taiwan. So in reflection of that, PTech schools in Taiwan, including the different pathways which are supported by different industries. So they are mainly engaged and recommended by the PTech schools. And for example, in Taipei Tech, there's a school in the north part, because their pathways intelligent automation. So we are looking for the partners which can provide the industry know-how and future job opportunities. And together with IBM, the Taipei Tech schools, we have another 3 industry partners, including Pegatron, which is the major supplier of Apple computer. And AUO is a global leader in optoelectronic solution. And Chicony is a major device and electronic manufacturers. And also the composition of this industry partner reflects a variety of the business landscapes in different parts of Taiwan. For example, in the middle part, like Formosa Tech, the industry partners are the leading players in computer integrated manufacturing systems and also the intelligent automation. And for example, the schools in the South Part, Kaohsiung Tech, the industry partner are local small and medium enterprises specializing in civil engineering and modern die engineering, which are the local employees sustaining growth in the job market locally. So this is the ecosystem we are trying to build. And for example, the Ministry of Education, they approved the PTA school with a 5-year integrated education model as a junior college, which are 3 years in high school and 2 years in the like community college. So with the government and educators and industry partners, we are building a strong ecosystem for Taiwan to build the PTA community. So as Ms. Eileen and my colleague Jay shared, it is very important we build a workplace learning experience for all our students. So we arrange the worksite visit for every class, every student. So on the upper right, this photo, you can see this is the photo our student visit the clean room of the optoelectronic companies. So this one on the lower left is the photo the student visit the assembly line of a factory of robotics and motion control companies. So we are trying to bring the workplace experience when we want the student to meet the professionals so they can understand about the different job roles and really experience the different companies' culture. So we are bringing the real world experience to our students. And also it's very important to have this like mentoring program to support our students at the age of 16, 17, they can understand more about what kind of different job roles, the responsibilities, different skills required for the different role, and also the career planning. So here you can see they are meeting with our young consultants, meeting with our engineers, and also not only the consultant engineer, we also arrange the student to meet with our GCG CEO and our CMO. So try to help them to understand a different job role. So when they are at a younger age, they kind of understand what their interest will be about for planning their future career. So also this one is interesting, something we do for the project-based learning. In Taiwan PTech curriculum, the workplace learning is a mandatory for the academic learning. So every student, they have to do at least 3 to 4 semesters of workplace learning in their curriculum. So this is the case for the Taipei Tech. They had done a 2-semester project-based learning for their workplace curriculum. So they actually form a group of 6 teams, and in the 2 semesters of time, they have to propose using the skills they learn, like communication, collaboration, and leadership. And at the end of the 2nd semester, they have to present a project as a team project. So one of the team you can see here, they actually design a board game. So starting from the ideation, the design, the development, and even prototyping, they finally presented a business plan which they want to sell a board game. And also a team of 6, the young students, they use the Python, their new skills, to clean up more than thousands of data. And together with the chatbot function and mobile app application to provide the tourist information. So still we are seeing very like immature business concept, but I think it's a very good learning for every student. They have to work together present their ideas in front of the professors, the school teachers, even the government officials about what they can really leverage the workplace learning skills. Okay. So one of the things very important for Taiwan PTAC is Taiwan is a small country. We have like 23 million population, and English is not our native language. So it's our critical mission, how we can bring the world to the students and how we can bring the Taiwan student to really see the world. So with PTAC, we are connecting with a global community, which we can step out of the small island like only Taiwan to see this bigger world. So last year in May, we bring the student to join the Think Summit in Beijing. We bring 3 students to join the Planet PTAC events in New York. So they have to practice using their English ability to present their projects and to present, to share their PTAC learning to the broader audience. So this is a very important experience to really like build their confidence and to really that they can bring back their global experience to share with their friends and other PTAC students. So I want to end up with my sharing with 2 slides on COVID-19, which I think because Taiwan, we are actually pretty fortunate. We didn't really experience the lockdown. So Taiwan students can remain the regular school studies in a very physical and face-to-face way. But with COVID, we are seeing a more boundless and innovative digital learning way. So this is the newsletter which Taiwan students, they write up the story and share with on the ptac.org, this big community about their back to school experience. So in this photo, everyone was wearing their mask, but how they can continue their study even by the impact of COVID. So this is another thing we try to encourage our students to share their story to a broader PTAC community. So they are not only able to like practice their presentation or storytelling skills, but they are also able to share what they really learned from this like in the new normal period of time. So this is a newsletter. So everyone, if you are interested to know more the Taiwan back to school stories, we'll share the link later. And this is my last chart. This is actually a project led by a Kaohsiung Tech professor. So this is a volunteer project which the mold and die department students, they're using their 3D printing technology to support one hospital in Kaohsiung area with 200 face shields. So because they see that in most of the hospitals, short of the resources and manpower, so people are using very simple material like foam and tape and staplers to produce the face shield to protect themselves during the COVID time. So the modern day student, they have the skills of using the 3D printing technology. So they volunteer to work together with the professors using their technology and their passion. So they eventually prepare 200 face shields and share with the medical personnel in a hospital. So this is just one of the things that even though they are only at the 2nd year of their learning, but if we talk about the future job and the future skill they require, I think they are building something that they're required to fit the future needs. It's really the attitude and the passion and commitment they can use what they learn at the school to address this bigger social issues. So I think this sharing will let you understand more about the Taiwan student stories and what they do recently, and a lot of excitement they are learning through the PTAC journey. So this is my sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that very inspiring case study in Taiwan. And we hope to build more cases and operationalize PTAC in the Philippines. And I would like to thank Dr. Michael, Attorney Josel, Jane Moffat, and of course, Lisa. And before we proceed to our open forum, I would like to share with you this video. Can we roll it now?
At IBM, we've learned a lot in 109 years.
We've learned that it takes more than innovation
to make a positive global impact.
It takes stewardship.
It takes good tech. We strive to model what good tech is and what it can be, sharing data and insights, making AI transparent, and advocating for policies that positively impact the world.
It's one of the reasons why we launched the IBM Policy Lab and why the Ethisphere Institute named IBM as one of the world's most ethical companies in 2019. Because good tech
means responsibility. In 2019, we were recognized as one of the best places to work because good tech is inclusive. It's standing together to fight discrimination in all its forms and wherever it exists. Inspiring IBMers to bring their best and most authentic self to work every single day.
And it's these IBMers who are behind education programs like STEM for Girls and P-Tech, contributing their expertise to support teachers and to help learners of all ages build skills for themselves, their families, and for our global community. Why?
Because good tech is about transformation. At IBM, we've reduced our carbon dioxide emissions by nearly 40% since 2005. We support the Paris Climate Agreement and we support a responsible plan to tax carbon emissions. Because good tech means commitment. A commitment to continue to work with our global partners in leading the way to a sustainable, clean energy future.
This is what good tech looks like.
It's a pledge to the beliefs that guide us every day.
These beliefs enable our customers,
employees,
suppliers,
shareholders, and communities
to be global leaders in putting smart to work for good,
to overcome worldwide challenges and embrace transformative opportunities now
and long into the future.
Okay, so that's a video from IBM, and I am seeing now the academe, industry, and government linkage. I hope we'll be able to realize that very, very soon with the help of the private sector, collaborating with the government and the academe. Before I introduce our reactors, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Tata Medado, President of Asia Pacific College. Good afternoon, sir. So just for the structure, for our open forum, to our participants and guests who want to ask a question or share a comment, please write it on the chat box and we will do our best to respond or take note of your input. And then for structure, our reactors will be given 3 to 5 minutes to share their thoughts or questions on the presentation. From the government sector, we would like to request reactions and ideas from the Department of Education. We invited USEC Tonisito O'Malley, but because of an important event, he will not be able to join us. But instead, we'll have Director Milagros Telino. I'd like to introduce that Dr. O'Malley, or USEC O'Malley, is currently the Undersecretary of Legislative Affairs, External Partnerships, and Project Management Service of the Department of Education. We are happy to have him, supposed to be, but with Ma'am Milagros, of course, we're more than happy to have her with us this afternoon. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I call on Director Milagros Telino. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon. Do you hear me now? I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay.
I'm happy to be part of this event. And although I may not be as, of course, definitely USEC O'Malley is, I cannot be as good as him, but I am glad to hear many new ideas, new thoughts, and new directions being shared by our presenters. For a start, I am so affected by the future painted by Dr. Jackson with COVID as a given, that in the future, near future of 2030, many things could really happen. So different from the way we've been used to. And as basic education, of course, we've been too conventional, too structured in terms of education in the teaching and learning process. And with COVID accelerating the shift to remote learning and even working, it's really now a very big challenge in front of DepEd. As of now, the president has ruled no face-to-face interaction during the teaching and learning process until probably January, when situations would have improved. But at the moment, making very young learners participate in online learning is really, really very difficult. And right, I agree with what may now be the role of teachers with this futuristic environment in the new normal. So being a mere from learning facilitators, they will have to be even better in facilitating learning really, and in guiding not only learners, but even parents, I guess. Because many families are not capable of supporting the learning of their children in terms of the remote method. And therefore, as that basic education, our challenge is with the different pictures, scenario painted. Our challenge is how do we produce graduates that can communicate effectively, that's capable of independent learning, and has a good moral values, of course, that's basic, and that is ready for either the world of work or for higher education. I'm glad to hear the PTech strategy. I think it is very innovative, which is in between post-secondary and between G9 and grade 14, if you may call it. And I hope that in the Philippines, we can have something like that. The only problem, I guess, for now is that we have this trifocalized system of education, and therefore putting this in place will really require enormous consultations, collaborations between government and industry partners in the private sector. So how do you remedy the situation for learners? For example, not many, all the areas in the Philippines are technology ready. And a big part actually is not ready for that shift. So as basic education, our approach is really blended learning. Only a portion will probably go online, while the blended in the sense that there is online learning, there is modular learning, and offline teaching. Any combination of those is blended learning. So it really depends upon the skill of the teachers and the support of the parents to make their children effectively learn. And we also we are going also to the use of radio and TV-based instruction as part of the blended learning approach. And I wonder how all these technological developments can really be addressed by our sort of very basic procedures or strategies for imparting learning, especially among the very young learners. But I like the thought that the best way to predict the future is to create it, according to Dr. Attorney Batapa. I just hope that in the process of creating that, they will all be there to support the industry, the private sector, the businesses, the local governments, will all be there to support government, especially in these very trying times that the economy is down. And however we try to reprioritize, there is really a difficulty in achieving what we hope to achieve under this current COVID-19 environment.
Yeah.
So I guess that's about for now.
Maraming salamat, Director Milagros Telino, coming from the Department of Education. No? And I was informed that you'll also be creating your Futures Thinking Office. So good luck. And now from the Commission on Higher Education, our next reactor is Dr. Algin Derilag. He is currently the youngest commissioner at the Commission on Higher Education. He is a certified human resources professional, a registered medical technologist, as well as a registered nurse. And he has handled various roles in the academe as faculty, researcher, and administrator. Magandang hapon po, Dr. Algin.
Magandang hapon. Allow me to share my slide. So to the President and CEO of Development Academy of the Philippines, Attorney Engelbert C. Caronan Jr., the Senior Vice President and Dean of DAP, Dr. Lizan Perante Calina, President and Country Manager of IBP Philippines, Ms. Eileen Hudanyao, to the President of Kalayaan College, Dr. Maria Oliva Domingo, Chairman Alicia De La Rosa Bala of the Civil Service Commission, Undersecretary Tonicito Umali of the Department of Education, PASOK President Dr. Tirso Ronquillo, our CHED Regional Director Leonida Calagi, to all our speakers from the local and international agencies, Dr. Michael Jackson, Attorney Josel Batapa Sige, Ms. Jade Moffat, Ms. Lisa Chen, and to all our partners from DepEd, PASOK, Taguig City University, PSBP, PMAP, and DDSLS. Good afternoon to all of you. I would like to commend this initiative of the Development Academy of the Philippines and the IBM Philippines for spearheading the 6th eDekalogo to discuss the future of our country and of our country's workforce. We at the Commission were enlightened with the presentations from both academia and industry, both local and international, with regards to the development of a stronger and smarter future-forward Philippines. And it is an opportune moment to share to our participants today the movements and directions of the Commission on Higher Education with regards to this agenda. The reaction I prepared shall be guided by 3 major parts. First is revisit. We need to revisit data and trends so that we may be better understand the context of the education landscape, understand the underlying context of these data, and review guiding principles for higher education. Next is reflect. Having assessed previous data and information, we need to understand how to leverage on previous gains and how we can adapt the same with the evolving landscape of higher education. The third is respond. Only after having revisited the past and reflected on the present can we respond to the future. We propose that our responses be collaboratively designed together with future-thinking teachers and education leaders so as to also prepare a workforce of future-thinking students. First is the revisit. As all of us know, the global pandemic brought by COVID-19 has disrupted most, if not all, facets of our country, to which includes the higher education sector. According to the 2020 Global Monitoring Report released by the UNESCO COVID-19 Educational Disruption and Response Task Force, almost 1.2 billion young learners have been affected by school closures globally. Included in this 1.2 billion learners are 28 million Filipino learners, with more than 3.5 million of them belonging in the higher education sector. Given this, the Commission has continued its efforts to conduct numerous dialogues, specifically with our colleagues in the colleges and universities, both public and private, to revisit their status and identify specific challenges posed by COVID-19 to the Philippine higher education sector. These challenges include the following. First, decline in enrollment for the succeeding semester. Second, revenue losses for private higher education institutions or HEIs. Third, foreseeable increase in tuition and other fees for the private sector. Fourth, displacement of part-time and non-regular faculty. Fifth, connectivity concerns of faculty and students, especially the cost it entails. Sixth, preparedness of faculty and students to transition immediately to flexible learning modalities, such as technology-mediated and blended modes of delivery. And lastly, disadvantaged stakeholders, that includes COVID-19 patients, financially displaced students and teachers, and the tertiary education with regards to tuition fee dependent. We take note of all these specific concerns, with most of these concerns dominating most of our discussions in the Commission, so that we can all develop timely and responsive policies and projects, all for the benefit of our higher education students. Secondly, with regards to reflect, as we continue to understand the continuously evolving landscape of higher education, we continue to hold on to our mantra that is embedded within the spirit of our policies and programs, that is faithful compliance to mutually beneficial collaboration. We at the Commission continue to leverage on institutional partnerships, interdisciplinary engagement, and on the whole of society approach to problem resolution. We continue to forge partnerships with other government agencies such as the Department of Education and the Department of Information and Communications Technology. We continue building higher education consortia in all regions in the country, and we continue to support our students by foreseeing the need to support their parents and their immediate communities. We at the Commission have reflected that through collaboration, we can all help each other as we brave the future. Thirdly, respond. We respond to the learning crisis by continuing the operationalization of the following initiatives. First, supporting our institution to transition to more flexible learning. We at the Commission would like to strengthen the idea that the success of flexible learning rests not only with the use of high technologies, but on the reorientation of our mindset to more flexible and adaptive means. That is to continue to adapt to the context of our learners, considering the diversity of their socioeconomic backgrounds and their access to technologies, and to adapt to the context of our teachers, considering the diversity of their technical expertise. Second, developing more safe and secure teaching and learning spaces. We at the Commission are ever more engaged to provide sound and safe infrastructure for our students and faculty, enhanced and designed to adapt to the new normal, and ensure that these spaces become and remain more inclusive, gender sensitive, and accessible. Third, maintaining international competence under the new normal. While we are proud to share that the University of the Philippines has landed into the 65th spot for this year's Times Higher Education Asia rankings, and the placing of the De La Salle University in the 301st to 350th bracket of the same prestigious rankings, we are ever more inspired to continue supporting our higher education institutions in their pursuit to be globally competitive. Included in this agenda is our initiative to enhance the transnational education program to attract more international students. Fourth, addressing the needs of our students in a more holistic approach. We continue to assess and develop more responsive services to our students that address their needs from various aspects, academically, socially, emotionally, economically, and psychologically. We understand that our students would need to be supported through their multifaceted approach so that they will be successful in maximizing their potential and achieving their goals. And lastly, enhancing the three pillars of higher education institutions, namely research, instruction, and community extension. We aim to provide increased support to project-based research grants, professional development programs to higher education faculty and non-teaching personnel, and our commitment to the wider community through COVID-19 responsive community extension programs. We recognize that the continuous cycle of revisiting the past, reflecting on the present, and responding to the future will continue to guide us as we strengthen the initiatives and advocacies of the Commission on Higher Education. We recognize that the task will be challenging and evolving, but the Commission is ready and will continue to adapt. Again, thank you very much to the Development Academy of the Philippines and to IBM Philippines and to all our partners in the academia and industry. Together, we will brave the future. Together, we can. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Commissioner Derilag, for that very comprehensive reaction from the Commission on Higher Education. Now, at this point in time, we would like to hear from the academe, and the first one to react is the President of Batangas State University, where he is also a full-fledged professor. He is likewise the President of the Philippine Association of State Universities and Colleges since 2017. Let us all welcome Dr. Tirso Ronquillo. Good afternoon, Dr. Tirso.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. Attorney Engelbert Ronald, the CEO of DAP, Dean Lisan Kalina, the Senior Vice President and Dean of DAP Grad School of Public and Development Management, Chairperson Bala of the Civil Service Commission, Commissioner Alin Darilag of the Commission on Higher Education, distinguished speakers, reactors, participants, good afternoon to all of us. The issues on skills mismatch, skills gap is actually with us already years or decades ago. This discussion on futures thinking and the jobs of tomorrow is really timely and necessary, especially now that we have this current pandemic. The challenge is how really to prepare our students for that skills of the future and jobs of the future. I would like to ask or to raise some points on somehow addressing this mismatch between the students' learning and what the industry really needs. We need really to strengthen the bridge between the demand for and supply of skills in the university and in the industry. Employers can also play a more active role by co-creating and shaping the curriculum. The mismatch is between the academe and the industry. The simple solution or the very basic approach is really to enjoin the industry to co-create our curriculum. Gone were the days that the university should really do instruction by themselves. Now is the time that the industry should be enjoined in reshaping our curriculum. We now have the outcomes-based education, which is also being espoused in the academy and the Commission on Higher Education. What is outcomes-based education? That is learning from our customers what really they need for our students. Now is the time for us to talk, the industry and the academe. But of course, to make the ecosystem complete, there has to be other stakeholders. The government should also be there. The government should take the lead. For our students to really be prepared of the skills future or the jobs of the future, we know that we need to practice deep skills in a timely and accessible manner. What do we mean by this? Almost all universities, we provide diploma. What about the short skills or the short courses, the skills that we can take from these short courses? It has to be modular now. It has to be canned. It has to be targeted. It has to be specific. I think we need to revisit, as explained by Commissioner Aldrin, we need to revisit the way we provide education now. Is giving diploma after forced education really necessary now? I think we need to reflect on that. What really the industry needs may not be that long education, but it has to be targeted. It has to be addressing certain skills requirement, it has to be checked, it has to be revisited. There has to be a discussion, a frequent discussion, because these needs are evolving. Our curriculum should also be evolving. That's why the industry really has to be consulted, has to be involved in doing teaching and learning inside our universities. In outcomes-based education, the curriculum really has to be prepared from the very start with the industries. It has to be the industries that should guide us. Of course, there should be theories, there has to be framework, but it has to be the industry really who should provide us the necessary skills requirement. Decades ago, there is a gap. Until now, there is a gap. The question is, are universities really preparing our students to really get or to really give to industries what they really demand of us? So that is very fundamental, that the universities and the industries should be hand in hand co-creating our curriculum. Now, we always focus on the skill sets. Many universities or even industries focus on the skill set. We need also to focus not only on the skill sets, but on the mindset. The mindset of our students, even the mindset of our faculty, that it has to be broadened, it has to be expanded, that our students now should be taught of, aside from these basic skills, should be taught of the global outlook. Our students should have to have global outlook. They have to be diverse. While we are focusing on some skills requirement, we have to be diverse now, because we are demanded of that skills. Our students, our graduates should be responding not only to our local problems, but will be responding also to global problems. That's why we need also to teach our students to have that global outlook. So on that note, I think there is a challenge among our university stakeholders, a challenge among us HEI managers, a challenge among us faculty members, and a challenge also among us in the government. We need to talk now. That's our realization. It has to be a whole of government approach, and the industry should be with the government, should be with the academe, and should be with the community also. That our offering must be relevant to the industry and relevant to the community or to the local government. So I can say, or as we observe, this skills gap will not be really solved. It is really evolving. When there is no skills gap, there will be no challenge among us in the academe. The challenge should always be there. That's why we always say that we are hitting a moving target. No matter how the university would be advanced in their curriculum, no matter how advanced our universities are, there will always be gaps. There will always be a skills gap, because the industries are also evolving. They're also advancing, and it's just all right, because it's part of development. And we should teach our students the independent learning. That's one of the skill set that we need to teach our students, independent learning, because we cannot teach all of them. We cannot teach all the skills required. That's why they should be taught of the independent learning and lifelong learning, so that they can adapt to what the industry requires after they graduated. So on that note, I would like to congratulate, of course, the Development Hub of the Philippines for hosting discussion like this. We need more of these discussions in the Philippines, especially now that we are in this crisis. I love to join this discussion, any forum that there should be a discussion between the academe, the industry, on addressing this mismatch. Admittedly, we need to change, we need to repair, we need to adjust our curriculum. And we in the academe, this sector is really responsive on what the industry is requiring of us. So again, I would like to participate and support this futures thinking sponsored by the Development Academy of the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Tirso Ronquillo, for that challenge. No? Sa DAP, we would like to take that challenge and pwede kaming maging home-based po for the academe, industry, and government to collaborate towards redesigning the curriculum at the higher and also at the basic education. So let's hear another reactor from the academe. We have Dr. Juan Birion, but Dr. Juan will be represented by Dr. Rosales. And I'd just like to introduce Dr. Juan Birion. He is the university president, and also Taguig City University is the first P-Tech school in the Philippines. So for Dr. Birion, let's welcome Dr. Amalia Rosales, Vice President for Academic Affairs. Ma'am, good afternoon. We still have Dr. Amalia Rosales. Okay, I think we lost her, or maybe she's just adjusting her connection. Before we accept Dr. Rosales, we would like to proceed to our next two reactors, or rather three from the industry. We have Mr. Reynaldo Antonio Laguda. He is the president and CEO of Philippines Business for Social Progress, one of the largest non-government organizations in the Philippines today. And he brings with him more than 2 decades of experience across the development, corporate, and government sectors. Friends, let us hear from Mr. Reynaldo Laguda. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Dr. Lisan. Just quick. It's been a long afternoon. I think there are a lot of points I want to share, just maybe a bit of my notes kasi ang dami ko ring notes. No? But I think the one of the things that I picked up is really how three things interplay with each other. And one is, you have all of these external shocks like COVID, and we expect more of these to come. Number two, how it interplays with communities and the general population. And three, how communities use technology to deal with these shocks, and it almost creates this interplay almost creates a vicious cycle that sometimes technology disruptions are the causes of external shocks to communities as well. So 5 quick points. One is, I think there is a real issue that was brought about with respect to exclusion, or the challenge of inclusion, whether these be gender, age, or what even Attorney Giselle was talking about, urban versus rural development, or NCR-centric versus province development, and even access to education. So these are, I think when we talk about the impact of COVID and how it has boosted the use of technology, it also brings about the danger of widening the digital divide. So that's one example of the challenge of inclusion. Number two, because of what's happening and the interplay of these, we are seeing that customer requirements are really changing. The way business is done is changing, how work conditions are for us, whether you're working from home, remote learning, and all that, it's changing. And also the modalities of work and delivery of services are also changing. So in essence, customer requirements will change, whether these be in the area of transport, food, or even the need for the type of user experience that IBM was referring to, and Eileen was referring to, that this will also change, which will result in, which is part of the reason I think why the types of skills required will also change. The third one is that when we talk about not just the youth, not just the new workforce, but even the existing workforce, and I saw in the chat box about there is a real challenge of reskilling, upskilling the existing workforce. And it's not just about creating new skills, but one of the things I picked up from Attorney Giselle is that more than just creating a greater number of jobs, it's probably also the challenge of creating new jobs, um, in reference to what Dr. Jackson was talking about in the future. So I think it's a combination of, especially that we are entering a recession, that we want to revive jobs, but at the same time that maybe there is an opportunity to create new jobs even in this crisis. The fourth one is, I guess, talking about roles, speaking about all of these, and the importance of partnerships. So I appreciate, you know, the discussions about industry academic councils or even PTech as a model for public-private partnership, but it's also being able to distinguish what roles private sector plays best, what roles government would play best. So for example, can private sector be the lead in promoting innovation and looking for market-driven responses, and government being an enabler rather than emphasizing its regulatory function, especially when we want to promote innovation and adaptation and agility. Finally, I think in this whole discussion of skills, this whole discussion of jobs and being agile and adaptive to the changing environment, I think a question that we should also not forget is how is it transforming our communities? While we talk about skills, we talk about technical skills, we also talk about, I think, core skills such as communication and the changing nature of the way we collaborate with each other in a contactless environment. But I think critical also is making sure that we continue to emphasize a values-driven approach. So when we talk about even in a contactless or in a virtual environment, there's still a need for authenticity, there's still a need for cohesion, and there's still a need for inclusion and equity. That's all. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Sir Ray, for that 5 points now you raised. Now let's proceed to Ms. Lynn Mukhi. She is the Vice President of the People Management Association of the Philippines, a premier organization of HR professionals and people managers. She is an author, public speaker, senior lecturer, and multi-awarded strategic HR consultant and practitioner. Friends, please welcome Ms. Lynn Mukhi. Good afternoon, Ms. Lynn.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, IBM, as well as Development Acad Graduate School of Public and Development Management for putting together this, really groundbreaking and very innovative webinar. I look forward to having more of this. And, speaking from the PMAP and the industry perspective, my reaction is a call to action. We've spoken a lot about the challenges and the need for more conversations around this topic. I believe in the interest of agility, as we've said, what we need now is quick action. It need not be perfect. We may not have 100% well laid out plans, but if we take action quickly, we have a guarantee that things will move forward. So when we talk about policy innovation, for instance, PMAP is at the moment working together to help revise the labor code of the Philippines. As it was mentioned by one of our speakers, we need to revise and craft national and local policies that will be more accommodating towards looking at how we can integrate PTech graduates, or not just PTech graduates, but our youth, so that they have opportunities to work, even if without college degrees. One of the action points we can take here is to recraft the way we define working hours. Very simple, but really something that would make a significant difference. People are now working from home, and if we are able to recraft working hours to make it flexible, not dependent on a company's volition or work from home arrangements, but institutionalized so that it is consistent across industries, then we're creating more opportunities for people to get employed. When we look at employment requirements, work hours, the minimum wage law, this has to be reviewed, and PMAP is advocating for a revamp of the labor code within this year, maximum after the first half of next year, that's 2021. In the area of talent management, I would call on all human resource leaders to review the way we hire people. We need to junk. Starting on Monday, our requirements that people should be four-year college degree course graduates to qualify for entry-level jobs. So we need to widen our specifications when it comes to requirements for entry-level jobs. We need to redefine our workplace policies as well in terms of time to work so that people have flexibility. If we are accepting people who have only two-year course, two-year certificates, and we want to allow them the opportunity to keep upskilling, then we need to say we don't require an 8-hour workday consistently, but we allow flexi time, and the work from home arrangements that we have been implementing in these past few months have shown that we can trust the worker to deliver according to results and not be delivering according to, working from an 8 to 5 office environment. If we can, again, institutionalize that in our workplace policies, then it would make a significant impact, and we can take this forward as well. In line with reskilling, it's still sad that a lot of our companies lag behind in terms of the use of technology. We have an opportunity at this moment. As they say, in every crisis, there are problems created, but in every crisis, there are also opportunities created. This is the time for us to embrace technology and enable our workers to be retooled so that they can fully participate. We should not say, if you're not able to work from home, then you go on forced leave. That should not be our response. But my call to action is, what can we do to upskill you and to provide you the tools so that you can continue to work from home no matter how long this pandemic lasts? On the last point of branding the Filipino worker, I love that point because the Filipino worker is known globally for our skills and for what we contribute. It's time for us, I think, to put together a unique value proposition for the Filipino worker. And to that, I would say, let's rebrand. Let's brand the Filipino worker as somebody who's characterized by the values of competence, professionalism, and that unique trait of malasakit. Very uniquely Filipino. And it is something that will give pride and confidence to our youth so that the moment we market our workers, we say, hire a Filipino. You have somebody who will be competent, professional, and at the same time bringing a unique sense of malasakit to your organization. So these are action points that I think we can take forward immediately. Let us be agile in our response to this discussion that we had today. I am looking forward to 330 plus participants joining us in the PMAP annual conference coming on October. I heard Dr. Tirso say that he's happy to take part in more discussions. So I'd like to invite all of you, let's get together and work together. October 21 to 23, we have a digital PMAP annual conference, and we're looking at HR through 2020 lenses. The emphasis on a sharp focus on meeting the urgent needs of today so that we are future ready. It is in perfect alignment with the theme that we are talking today. There's an email address towards the bottom of this poster. If I may invite Abby to please scroll down. You would see that government and academe are our unique guests, right? PMAP is composed of 2,200 individual as well as corporate members. And we are composed of representatives from government, academe, as well as the youth, which is the JPMAP or Junior PMAP. So you see, I'm offering a venue for all of us to take forward this discussion. I'd be glad to host a special segment for PTech to be featured as well. It's still October 21 when we're having the conference. We have time this September to put together specific action points to take this conversation forward. There are email addresses flashed there on the screen. I'd like for you to take your camera phones and take a snapshot of this. Please register. And when you register, if you're volunteering to work with us to take PTech forward, then please say so in your registration and it will certainly get to me and I'll be here to support you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lean. From the industry sector. Now, I'd like to go back to the academe sector. I think we have Dr. Birion right now. He's the Taguig City University President. Dr. Birion, are you there now?
I am Dr. Rosales, representing Dr. Birion.
All right, okay. Okay, ma'am,
Sorry
Dr.
for that, there was a technical problem.
All right, welcome back, ma'am.
A pleasant afternoon to everyone. I will not be greeting each one of you anymore. And I would like to state here at the start that Dr. Birion is sending his apologies to all of you for his inability to come because there was a call for a meeting by the city mayor, and as member of the MANCOM, he has to be there. However, he entrusted me with the responsibility of representing him this afternoon. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all the speakers because, you know, this is a very uncertain time for all of us. And this is not only in the Philippines that we are having anxieties, that we are having fears, but all over the world, there is the presence of anxiety for all of us. The question of most of our students is, do we still have to go back to school? Do we still need to graduate? After graduation, what? These are just two of the questions that I have in mind. However, listening to our speakers this afternoon, my belief that there is always that particular hope. Nothing is hopeless in the world. Nothing is hopeless in our lives. There is that kind of hope that definitely I saw that glimpse of hope from the speeches of our speakers this afternoon. From Ms. Zhao, I got this, new collar jobs. And she made he stressed that new collar jobs do not need students or graduates to really have diplomas. The four-year degree courses definitely is not that important now. What is important is they are possessed with skills and the capabilities to perform the job. This statement of Ms. Zhao was corroborated by the statement of Ms. Mopat when she said, the right people, the right skills, and the right jobs, which again, reiterating what Ms. Zhao stated earlier, do not necessarily need or require a four-year diploma. This would then open the minds and the eyes of our parents that a four-year diploma definitely does not mean success already for our children. That there is another way to be successful, and that if you possess the right skills, which you can use in the job that you would like to have in the future. Dr. Jackson's statement that all sectors at a high risk of dramatic automation with STEM jobs being the most in demand in the next perhaps years, decades, and so on, definitely is something that make our university very, very responsive to that. And this is where I'm going to tell you the story of our involvement with PTEC. And please bear with me. This is actually sharing our experience with IBM Philippines through PTEC. When in early 2019, we embarked on a journey with IBM Philippines through PTEC, through the graciousness of then Congresswoman, now Senator Pia Cayetano, and again through then Mayor of Taguig City, now Congresswoman Lani Cayetano. The idea of being the first PTEC school, and we are proud that we are the first PTEC schools in the Philippines, This idea of being the first tech school in the Philippines excited us, since we will be partnering with a well-established company and global IT leader such as the IBM. We also learned that being a tech school requires commitment and a strong and genuine desire to improve the quality of education of our students. In July 2019, following PTEC's open enrollment requirement, we accepted a total of 60 students in grade 11 of our senior high school, STEM strand, for the school year 2019-2020. Well, many of these students came from the poorest of the poor families in Taguig City, and the first from their families to enter pre-college. Since this was also the time when we started to offer STEM track in senior high school, therefore, there were voluminous papers and other requirements we have to submit to get the certification from DepEd. In August 2019, the PTEC students kick off the school year with a mentoring event from IBM and its industry partner, IT Interaction Philippines. With the help of a very dedicated industry liaison in school, Ms. Abby Lisaka, the STEM PTEC teachers were able to enrich the first year of the PTEC students with weekly workplace learning activities on Fridays, bi-monthly workshop events labeled as PTEC Talks, mentoring session that made the students very, very excited and very, very fulfilled. Had it not been for the pandemic, these students would have ended the school year with a worksite visit to IBM office in Taguig City and a field trip to the Mine Museum. While this was happening, our CICT faculty were being prepared to the help of IBM and Asia Pacific College, which is a center of excellence in IT education, to capacitate them in specialized courses and in robotics process automation and other important aspects of technology. This will be the career paths of the students once they enter college. For this incoming school year, 2020-2021, we will have another batch of incoming grade 11 students, making the total number of PTEC students in TCU 120 all. While we are on a strict order from the DepEd not to do a face-to-face teaching, our PTEC students have the edge already over other students because they are being prepared for blended flexible learning through Open PTEC, which is IBM's free digital learning platform designed to introduce technical concepts such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, as well as modules and 21st century skills such as critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and many more. What we like about Open PTEC is that it is self-paced, learning and works across most digital devices and gadgets, including our students' mobile phones. We know that with or without COVID-19, we are just starting our PTEC school journey, and there will be more exciting learning opportunities for our students and faculty in the coming years, as well as more preparations ahead. We can't wait for our PTEC students to do more advanced skill-based projects, internship with pay, and career mentoring, and if they work hard enough, their very first interview with IBM. I would like to end this particular presentation this afternoon with this particular formula, which I developed in order to make us definitely the kind of citizens, because earlier I heard somebody talk about branding the Filipinos. We can brand ourselves through this formula also, which will make us unique, different from other people of the world. And this is my formula of L, C, D, C. L stands for love. We have to love one another. We have to love even the poorest. We have to love even the most unlovable person. L. LC, C, concern. We have to be concerned with everybody. D, dedication. We have to be dedicated to our work, to our function of teaching, to our function of developing the minds, the hearts, and the souls of our students so that they will become the citizens, not only good citizens of the Philippines, but good citizens of the world. And the last, commitment. Each one of us must have the commitment, the passion to definitely work hard, especially during this time that the world is facing an uncertain tomorrow. But there is always that hope, and hope springs eternal. And for eternally, we will be hoping that tomorrow everything will be okay, and then we go into our normal, under the new normal situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spreading the love, Dr. Amalia Rosales. Now we're down to our last reactor. We have Mr. Mike Calma from the industry sector. He is the Country General Manager of DDLS Philippines Aboitiz Incorporated. His mission is to accelerate the pace of digital transformation in the Philippines by producing a steady stream of well-trained, job-ready Filipinos through high-quality ICT training and certification. Friends, please welcome Mr. Mike Calma. Good afternoon, Sir Mike.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalina. I was very inspired by the story of Dr. Rosales because it's a very strong example of multisectoral cooperation and breaking silos, as was the common theme of our speakers here in this afternoon. And I think the way to approach this in general is we need to be agile and experiential here, because good now is better than perfect tomorrow. We'll never get it perfect today, or maybe even tomorrow. We'll get it perfect eventually, and we'll continue to improve from there. Because the reason this inspired me and this resonated with me is because I'm also a graduate of the public school system. And how I wish back then, several decades ago, that we had this exposure to industry, right? And my context is this, as Dr. Kalina mentioned, I was an IT professional, well, I'm still an IT professional practicing for almost 2 decades. And what I noticed in my customers in the industry is that in digital transformation, we focus too much on the technology as well as the processes, but not too much on people. This is why a lot of IT projects in the Philippines and even internationally, they kind of fail or lose steam. That's context number 1. Context number 2 is in my current role as the leader of DDLS Aboitiz. So we're a joint venture between the Aboitiz Impact Ventures, which is a new investment vehicle for the Aboitiz family towards social entrepreneurship. So we partnered with DDLS Australia, who's been in the IT training business in Australia for 30 years already. And I think our context is that our turnaround time is in weeks and months in getting IT professionals from companies and certifying them in certain technologies. And what really resonated with me is that that's not enough. We need to collaborate with industry, our industry partners, as well as government and academe in terms of training up students earlier, because that forms their foundation, and that is what's needed right now. So let me, now that I've set the stage in terms of my context, these are my 3 takeaways from all the discussion this afternoon. Takeaway number 1 is that while we see that there's a very fast pace of change, we need to have first principles or design principles as our North Star. So this was very well articulated by Attorney Caronan. We live in the VUCA environment, but we also need to remember what our mandate is as government professionals, as industry practitioners, and as academicians. And Dr. Jackson further illustrated with the Athena AI creating the materials for his presentation, that even though there's AI, we still need that human touch or human interpretation of whatever is churned out by AI. And I think this will be the jobs of the future. The jobs of the future, paradoxically, will be more human in nature. We will spend more of our time empathizing, understanding the context of our customers rather than doing the nitty-gritty stuff. And the second takeaway, and this I repeated already, is breaking silos. Not only through forums like this, but through on-the-ground activities. Every day we should reach out to not only our particular area of influence or competence, but also to other sectors. And this was illustrated very well with examples and case studies of the ladies from IBM, Ms. Yao, Ms. Moffat, and Ms. Chen. And also very inspirational is what Attorney Batapasige discussed, her sandbox and how she is able to attract foreign investment to the areas that need it most. So there are parallels I saw with the example of the PTEC example, the PTEC case study in Australia, as well as locators that or investors that we want to bring here in the Philippines, not only to the big cities, but also to emerging ones. Final takeaway for me is that looking forward, we should look at outcomes-based and holistic thinking and acting quickly, right? Everything should be distilled into action, right? Because if we don't act quickly, even in a small way, nothing happens, right? So I think we need to continue forums like this, not only forums like this, but regular interactions and regular quick wins, small projects that we can pilot and things like that. Because we are very much needed during this time. And I wish everyone the best. I mean, this pandemic is hard on all of us, especially all the businesses there. So all the more that we need to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you, Sir Mike, for really validating all the our aspirations, to really have a future that cares, this is our responsibility, and yes, we will continue to initiate knowledge co-creation activities. But before we wrap up, because we need, of course, to really close the discussion by having a synthesis to be given later on by Dr. Lily, I would like to call on Dr. Tata Medado of Asia Pacific University, because he has a question for our speakers. Dr. Medado, are you there?
Hi, hello.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this forum. I really think that as a, well, we are part of IBM, as a matter of fact, and I have been very fortunate, APC has been very fortunate to have helped IBM in assisting our first PTEC school, which is in Taguig. However, I really don't have a question, but there is something perhaps that can put in as a challenge to many of the educators that are here right now. I believe that this pandemic has always been thought of as something debilitating, something disruptive, and really causes some kind of an anxiety across different sectors of the communities in education, especially the parents, especially the students, who are shouting out, for instance, what's going to happen to us. But I think PTEC itself is one major solution that I really believe in, having knowledge about it and having seen the practice in Taguig. And something that I believe my challenge would be embracing it. I guess this is something very different that every educator should embrace. Why is that? Number one is it's teaching us to deconstruct education, meaning that we're no longer thinking about degrees. We're no longer thinking about diplomas. We're thinking of adjusting the fit to specific people's needs and organizational needs. it's that way of thinking that perhaps we no longer have to say that education is really just for those who would want to have the highest degree ever, because that's always been the aspiration of parents. Talking about anxiety, parents would want you to become a doctor, to become a lawyer, to become all of this. And let's break away from that, because as everybody is saying, that's not going to happen very soon. Many of these jobs are going to go away, not the doctors, of course, but there are myriads of opportunities for jobs and for careers, as a matter of fact, that are now in the offing, and they're not even requiring degrees. So it's deconstructing education. The second is IT infrastructure for education. Everybody seems to be complaining that what will happen? I don't have the infrastructure. My students are not connected. And therefore, I believe that there's what you call equity, okay? And at APC alone, we have been able to get our students all connected. It's possible. It's possible, but also because of industry-academic partnership, because we are closer to industry. Industry knows our role, aware of what we need. And just one step forward and getting them to understand that they can help education, we are given access. All of our students are given access. That is entirely possible. Thirdly, I think that PTech is an advantage. The advantage being, at this point in time, I think educators should agree that we don't hold the content. We are not the masters of the content. It's out there. It's global. PTech gives you that opportunity to give global education. And lastly, this is a way for us to personalize learning, meaning because IT has changed the way we teach. We said flexible learning, blended learning, we're doing all of that. But what does it really mean? It doesn't mean content. It does not mean delivery. What it really means as blended is that I can deconstruct learning and say to you that this is what you deserve because this is your aspiration for a career. You can personalize learning because of IT. And I think those are the three important points that I want to leave with you right now and leave you with the challenge of embracing PTech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tata. Now, to synthesize our very insightful discussion today, may I call on our senior fellow, Dr. Maria Oliva Domingo, who is also the president of Kalayaan University. Ma'am Lily?
Thank you, Lisan. I indeed have a very garantuan task this afternoon, and Lisan always throws things like this to me. So how do you synthesize in a few minutes, in a few words, a very rich discussion that we had today with a powerhouse of knowledge sharers and those who were generous in sharing their experience. And we also had an equally highly regarded panel of reactors with a rich contribution of ideas. So how do you synthesize all of these? And so as I looked out the window, I saw that it was gloomy, getting dark and raining. And maybe using that analogy, the world indeed is a combination of sunshine and rain. And today we heard many reasons, many words that will show that this world is gloomy. Example, we learned that the Philippines now is facing the biggest decline in GDP since 1961. Dr. Jackson told us that with certainty, 2021, we will have a global recession. It's raining truly hard. And he added that there will be a lot of jobs that will be considered jobs of the past because automation will displace a lot of workers. Many repetitive jobs will be eliminated. And even climate change was discussed in this forum where because it's going to be too hot, there will be effect on jobs, less people who can work under the heat of the sun. We also heard the recurring refrain, the mismatch, the disconnect between what the schools produce and what industry needs. And therefore, with automation and the mismatch, you will have youth unemployment. And with COVID-19, the disruption and we are all forced, compelled to shift to technology. We find that we are not all technology ready, that our trifocalized system requires a lot of consultations for it to work, to adapt to these new transforming modalities. And that as a result of COVID, there are 1.2 learners already affected. Further on, because I'm a president of a school, I already feel what was shared with us, that there is going to be a decline in enrollment, and we already see this. Declining enrollment, revenue losses, schools that have closed, displacement of faculty, part-time and full-time, a lot of connectivity issues, problem with our infrastructure, our digital infrastructure, the preparedness of the faculty. But amid this rain, we see the sun shine, and tomorrow there is definitely going to be sunshine. We heard from IBM, and it was so exciting, very impressive to learn that their corporate social responsibility has led them to have programs that will expand opportunities for the underserved, the underprivileged, the undermotivated. We heard from the experiences from Australia, Taiwan, and even here in the Philippines, in Taguig, that PTech and Open PTech works and has given opportunities to a lot of our underprivileged students who otherwise would be among the unemployed or even among the dropout. We heard from our resources speakers that there are initiatives in transforming the Philippines into a digital nation. There is already a digital workforce bill. And the sun is shining brightly because we see that STEM is the way to the future, and there will be more jobs that will open that are in the pathway of STEM. There will be a great demand for what we learned today, the new term, new collar jobs, and a transformation of our concept of jobs that are not credential-based, but about skills. And all of these revolve around three major elements that Mr. Laguda identified. They're happening in the world of COVID. They are caused by or enabled by technology, whether they in the rain or in the sun, and they operate within communities. And so we have been challenged. There have been many challenges thrown to the audience this afternoon. Challenges, what do we do with our education system? Because it takes too long to produce graduates, and by the time they graduate, what they have learned has been outdated. How do we produce graduates with good moral values, critical thinking, and communication skills? Then we heard from our reactors that there is a need to adjust the curriculum, but the adjustment of the curriculum, we should not leave to the academe alone, but to get industry actively involved in, because they are the users and therefore the enablers of the results of curriculum making. And that we should teach our students not content, but to be independent, lifelong learners, which should be incorporated in a redesigned curriculum. We learned this afternoon about the importance of partnerships, to co-create, to break silos, as our last reactor has put it. We saw this actively engaged in the PTech program, where academe, industry, local government collaborated to enable a program to produce results. This we can also use for the development of curriculum. And I think among the biggest challenges now is to demystify, deconstruct certain concepts about what education is. Should education be credentials-based, skills-based, but also to include values formation, we need to deconstruct the concepts of work, workplace, and work time. Should we be bound by 8 to 5 working hours? Should we be bound by full-time jobs or part-time jobs or by credentials? And so and to be able to produce the Filipino worker that we want, beautifully worded, competent, professional, may malasakit, nagmamahal, with love, with caring, with concern, with dedication and commitment. And so, amid the rain, there is always sunshine and there is always hope. And we will not only create our tomorrow, but we will take action because it is possible, and we should not be discouraged. Even when the rain is pouring, there will always be sun. I think it's very difficult to really capture all of these great ideas because we had a very rich discussion this afternoon. I have learned a lot, and thank you for the invitation to the PMAP conference, Ms. Lynn Mohi, because I am a practitioner of human resources. I'd like to participate. It is a very enriching discussion today, and we should continue with this because now we see, even in the discussion with academe, with industry, with practitioners, with civil society, that there is a lot that we can do for our country, and let's brag, we can do for the world. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ma'am Lily, for taking on the challenge to do the synthesis, the hardest part of our webinar. So at this point in
What happened to you?
yeah, sorry. I was saying that thank you for taking on the challenge for synthesizing the entire knowledge co-creation activity. It's the hardest part of a webinar. So at this point in time, I'd like to thank everyone for really spending their time to listen. No? I hope you're able to gain some insights from this one. And of course, we will not end sa dito lang na conversation. We will continue, no? We will continue because ngayon ang challenge is really there for all of us to take action nga. It's a call for action nga sabi ni Ms. Lynn kanina. So if you wish to know more about the PTech model and how you can apply it in your own school, LGU, industry, or organization, please visit www.ptech.org or through the contact details shown on your screen. And we also encourage you to fill out the survey link posted on the screen. And maybe we can also put that in our chat box so that they can easily copy and paste, no, in their screen as well. And as a reminder, we will send you the link via email. Once accomplished, you will receive your e-certificate of participation after a week. Finally, may I request everyone to please turn on their video for a group picture. This is our traditional way of really connecting. No? Okay, sige, I'm also looking for my screen. I think we have it there na. Are you ready? So may I request Celine at the count of 3 to take our group photo.
1, 2, 3. Smile.
I think we have another page. There are 10 pages of this. Okay. More pages.
Yes, and the last one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Maraming salamat po. See you on our next webinar. We will announce that on our FB page. Please also visit our website. That's www.gspdm.com. Nandun po yung mga resources. And also we have a YouTube channel that is DAP-GSPM, and our Facebook is DAP Graduate School of Public and Development Management. Maraming salamat to our speakers. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Chair Bala, Ms. Eileen Hudan, to our President, Attorney Caronan, Dr. Ronquillo, salamat. Dr. Darilag, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy weekend. Stay safe.
Weekend. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Ingat po tayong lahat.